Good afternoon, patrons, and welcome to the February 2018 Patroncast. We are back, and tragically, this may be the end of many a true nerd, because it has snowed in Britain, and thus we're probably all going to die. Or at least you think so. From Twitter. The British people, I think, we get quite excited about snow because it's a good opportunity to moan about how terrible snow is, which is why things like Snowmageddon have been trending on British Twitter at least, but I think that might be like localised trends. I'm not sure that's something you'd see if you were logged in Twitter in America. But yes, it's been snowing in Britain, and basically we've been panicking about it because it's fun to panic about snow in Britain. We're not well set up for it. And for a long time I just kind of thought, oh, it's Britain being useless. Then I saw a really good explanation online, which actually made a lot of sense, which is, you know what, Britain could do a lot better with snow. Like a lot of countries dotted around Europe deal with much worse snow a lot better. And the reason is because they've got a whole bunch of like snow-related infrastructure they can just roll out when it snows heavily to sort out the snow. But Britain doesn't really have that bad snow that often. Like, we can go like years without like a really bad snowstorm, and like an average year it might only snow like 2 or 3 times and it'll be fairly light on those occasions. So like basically at one point in Britain's past we just kind of made the decision to say, you know what, we're not going to bother having snow infrastructure, we'll just take a hit to productivity for 1 or 2 days every year, and then a bad hit to productivity once every 5 years, and that's probably going to be cheaper than actually having proper snow related infrastructure. I don't know if that's true because I just saw a person say it on the internet, so it might not be true, but it kind of makes sense, and I kind of like that. It does actually explain quite a few things. But something terrible has happened, which is we didn't go outside yesterday on account of the snow. We're almost out of milk. So after I've recorded the Patroncast, I need to actually go outside to get more. So if I don't come back, then this will be the last thing I ever record. So here you go. It can be for you, patrons. Marvellous. So it's been February. Now, February's been good and interesting. I've enjoyed February because I think it was halfway through January, Total War Warhammer 2 ended, which opened up a lot of space for one-offs. So I started kind of doing something new, and I think I actually pointed it out during Patroncast last month, just because it was still very new at that point, which is I've been trying to put the very best video of the week as the main video on Saturday, so Saturday's a bit more of an event. So if I go back to mid-January, say, the videos that have kind of been on Saturday over the past few weeks have been Battlefield 1, Assassin's Creed Origins, Rust, into Fortnite, Shadows of the Colossus, Max Payne, and last night's Stormworks, which isn't so well known as the other, but it was just such a fantastic video, I kind of had to put it out as the Saturday one. The moment I recorded it, I was like, yeah, that's moving up to Saturday. That can't just go in the middle of the week. That's a Saturday video right there. I kind of want the biggest, most well-known games and the videos that I think are really, really the best to actually be going out on the Saturday, which was why, yeah, Rust is fairly well-known. I probably could have put like a better well-known game on Saturday than Rust when it was, that was back on February the 3rd, but it was just such a fun video. I just wanted to put that out. So yeah, I've been trying to do that, and there's been a lot more one-offs in general. So actually, there's been loads of fun one-offs this last month. I think it's actually been really good. It's been nice to have slightly less in the series and more in the one-offs. And actually, I'm going to tell you something now. When we got to the end of the month, I went to actually go and have a look at how like the month did. See, because I was thinking like, okay, we've kind of done less series and we've done more one-offs. So logically, what's going to be the case is like, if I've done a good job, then views are going to have gone up and it's going to be great. I looked at the views like, oh no, views are down. Oh no, what have I done? I must have done something terrible. Oh, the low quality of videos. Then I remembered, February's only got 28 days, John. You genius. And January's got 31. So if I normalised for number of days in the month, or looked on like previous 4 weeks to previous 4 weeks before that point, it looked a lot more favourable. So yeah, that's actually worked pretty nicely. That's worked pretty nicely. And we got to start playing Stellaris again. Oh, I'm so glad Stellaris is back. Love Stellaris. I was playing quite a bit of Stellaris 1.8 and 1.9 behind the scenes. Like, I couldn't really fit in a full series of Stellaris 1.8 and 1.9. I think 1.8 was 1.8 was just before Synthetic Dawn, wasn't it? 1.9 was the Synthetic Dawn launch. I think 1.9 accompanied Synthetic Dawn. So I've been playing quite a lot of just before Synthetic Dawn and Synthetic Dawn. If that was actually 1.7 and 1.8, those are the two I've been playing. I played a little bit of the version just before 2.0. So definitely played some 1.9. I thought I played quite a bit of 1.8 and 1.9, but some of the old iterations start blurring into each other. Because I think 1.4 was Utopia, but then I can't actually remember what 1.5 and 1.6 did. I can't remember what they were. So I probably played a bit of those, but yeah, it's kind of the ones just before 2.0 that I've been playing a lot of. Oh, bloody hell, I love Stellaris. Absolutely love it. But yeah, we've had some fun stuff. Actually, one that I was surprised at, like, just occasionally the special videos surprise me when they don't do as well as I thought they were going to. Like, for example, on Valentine's Day, we did Pastry Lovers. I thought that was a brilliant video. That game was just so weird and had so much weirdness in it, but that video was just not watched. People did not really watch that one. It took me by surprise a little bit, because yes, sometimes the event videos work really well, and sometimes they don't. Like, say, I think it was 2 Halloweens ago, I did like a Resident Evil video for Halloween. That did really poorly as well. So since then, I haven't really, last year I didn't do a Halloween video. Did I do a Halloween? Hang on, I don't think I did a Halloween video. I'm just going to check before it turns out I'm lying to you. And the answer is no, I didn't, because it was just a double series day. That was just Total War Warhammer 2 and Skyrim, because it fell on a Tuesday. So there was no Halloween special, because the previous Halloween special did so badly, I decided not to bother doing it. But yeah, I think that's actually been a good month. So, the snow has fallen and we're all going to die, but at least I think the new way the actual schedule is working is going pretty nice. Oh, there's so much fun stuff coming up next week, by the way. There's some really fun videos coming next week. One game I'm not allowed to acknowledge yet. One game I've got my hands on. I'm not allowed to say what it is, and I know we're on Patroncast, thus it's quite private. But even then, I don't break NDAs because it's very rude and also illegal. But I've got my hands on a game a little bit early. I can start showing you it next week. It's pretty damn cool. It's pretty bloody damn cool. And yesterday, well, for me, I'm recording this on Friday. So what's going to be Stormworks for you tomorrow? No, wait, hang on. No, what was Stormworks for you yesterday? What's going to be Stormworks for me tomorrow? That's how time works. That's special. That's flipping special. So yeah, we've got some fun stuff coming up in March. I've kind of started laying down the March kind of schedule for the next couple of weeks. I kind of have an idea what video I want to come out when, even though loads of them haven't actually been recorded yet. In many cases, because I literally just don't have the game yet. But yeah, it should be some fun stuff. And I'm going to continue like putting out what I think is like the best video of the week on Saturday to make that a bit of an event. It's been good. Oh, and the Civ 6 live streams. That was actually, was that kicked off in Feb? Technically, was that the first one there, or was that... I don't know, because sometimes I'm really bad at actually marking down the live streams in the calendar that I've got in front of me. I think that must have kicked off on... Yeah, that must be... Yeah, that was February the 10th. That was February the 10th, because that was the same day Claire had to finish before 10, or before 9:30, because she was doing something else that evening. Right, yes, so the Civ 6 live streams have started. Oh, I've been enjoying that as well. And loads of people have been attending those. So that's been really successful. So that's been really cool. So we're definitely going to continue those as well. Anyway, let's move on to the questions, because there are plenty of them. And let's start off with the oldest question. The question that managed to get in first. And oh, it's going to be the one that makes the most people angry, quite possibly. Oh dear. Hi John, I've just been getting into Civ, mainly 5, because that's what all my friends play. What are some tips you'd give to new players, given you made a series last year? Oh, I'm going to upset the Civ players with this. I only played a little bit of Civ 5, so I don't know that much about Civ 5. The thing that I would probably say, based on my limited experience, is I basically looked for sites for cities by saying, oh, look at all the resources, and I didn't bother distinguishing between bonus resources and luxury resources, and I put way too much weight on bonus resources. Like, oh, look, there's so many bananas, I'll settle a city here. Great, it's growing so fast. How long is it going to take to build anything? Literally forever, because there was no production. Yeah, if I could go back now, what I'd probably say is, how about you just kind of settle cities in high production areas with a priority on luxury resources? So probably I'd say that. And also, bother building an army. That's something I've been guilty of in like Civ 5 and Civ 6. Actually bother maintaining an army, otherwise there's going to be trouble when, like, you know, the AI inevitably attacks you. That's probably the best I can do, because I did not play much Civ 5. I think I know Civ 6 a lot better than Civ 5, so I apologise, because that's probably all wrong. Would you ever live stream a modded version of Stellaris? Possibly. I don't see a reason why that would be a live stream as opposed to a video. I certainly have considered doing like a mod showcase of Stellaris, but I'd need to kind of... I need for that video to have a point, because I don't generally do mod, like, showcases, so it would need to be, like, a video I thought was really cool or really funny or something, or showed off some really, really cool stuff. So I'd need to actually find the right mods for that sort of thing. So, quite possibly yes, but I don't exactly know what would be in it. It's one of those things I kind of look and go, oh yeah, that might be a nice idea, but like I don't really have any idea how I'd actually make it happen, because I'm generally quite firm on myself. I don't let myself make a video unless I have a vague idea of why it's gonna be good. Like, I don't just go into videos like totally, I'll figure it out as I go along. Like, I've kind of, like, the actual content of the video, I just always pretty much figure out as I go along. Like, I don't think I've ever scripted a video I've made, but I like looking at a game ahead of time and thinking, okay, based on the trailer and the information I have, I think this would work. I think this could make a good video for a certain reason. So I like kind of going in that sort of thing. So, maybe, but not sure when. Any chance of an Aussie-friendly live stream at some point? You know what? That is fair. That's kind of fair. That would actually be fair. And also, it's encouraging me to... this question wants me to eat Tim Tams while drinking Milo. Now, I think Claire acknowledged Tim Tams were good. I think Claire's had Tim Tams. I don't know what Milo is, so I'm not sure. At some point, I think it would be fair we did an Australia-friendly live stream. I mean, the reason obviously we do it when we do it right now is like the three biggest nations that watch MATN are UK, US, and Canada. And therefore, if I do something that's UK evening on a weekend, so it's late US and Canada afternoon and like mid UK evening, that actually works for those three territories. So I'm really sorry to Australia, who always get a bum deal when it comes to when the videos come out and when we do the live streams. But at some point, if there were to be, like, say, some very specifically Australia guest I wanted to cover, I could do a bonus, like, Australia-friendly live stream. That could be a thing. I'll keep it in mind if any, like, ridiculously aggressively Australian game ever comes out. John, you've jokingly mentioned on the podcast and other places doing some form of Classics Corner series. I wasn't joking. I know I've kind of mentioned it in a kind of light-hearted way, but I wasn't entirely joking. I would like to do that. The suggestion in the question was, would you consider doing it as a series in the same vein as like extra credits on YouTube or on Patreon if the main channel audience isn't interested in that sort of thing? If I were to do it, I would do it on the main channel, because I'd need to find out whether people might be interested in it, or whether it might draw in a new audience. I don't think I'd ever set up like a new channel just for that. It could just be like a separately branded series on the same channel. Because I'm pretty sure that... Hang on, now I'm trying to remember. Do the Extra Credit lads, do they actually do... I think Extra History does exist on the... Hang on, now I need to check that. Yeah, I just checked. Extra History is on the main Extra Credits channel. It's just they slightly differently colour and brand the thumbnails to make them clearly distinguished. So if I were to do it, it would be on the main channel, because I'd be curious whether it could have its own kind of audience, where it's kind of some audience from the channel that watches the game stuff, and also bringing some new people as well. That'd be kind of fun, and see if we kind of cross-pollinate them. But I don't know when I'd do it, and I don't know what the focus would be. Like, if there was a focus, I think it would be kind of light-hearted, because some of, like, the ancient myths are so kind of ridiculous and nonsensical, and, like, when you actually think about how they actually all fit together, the amount of stuff that supposedly happens in these characters' lives is utterly ridiculous, especially when it's the people who are kind of vaguely connected to the Trojan War cycle and the events before it and the events after it. Like, what happens to some of those individuals, how much they get done in their lives is ridiculous, and all the tragedy they repeatedly suffer. It's actually just becomes kind of tragicomic. So, I think we'll do that at some point, but for the moment, it's kind of hard for me to say when that's going to be, because we're close to a capacity at the minute, because we do, like, 1 or 2 videos a day. Many days we do 2 videos. A video could easily take, a few hours to record, a few hours to edit. I'll go through it to make sure I'm happy with it. Rendered, uploaded, set up, put out. I need to set aside enough time that I can, be in the comments when a video goes out and chatting to people in the comments and all of that business. It's hard for me to set aside a big part of time for just a different project. Now, Claire obviously helps with that quite a lot, because Claire does quite a bit of the editing. these days. She used to do mainly series. She's doing slowly more one-offs. In fact, if you actually hear any laughter just faintly in the distance, that's Claire, the other side of the wall the microphone's close by to, who is currently editing the Stormworks video. So she did that. She does more and more one-offs these days. If they're kind of like, I'll kind of, when I record a one-off video, I'll kind of record it and I'll think, okay, is this like fairly, how complicated is it? Because some of them are quite messy, and after I record the video, I think, okay, if I cut that in this way, and I cut out this, and I rearrange this and the other, it might work pretty well. So a video that's coming out tomorrow, I did that. The way I kind of phrase it to Claire is I say, okay, this video is a bit of a mess and it needs to be completely rearranged to make it into a good video. So I'll do that. But like, if I think like I pretty much nail the video on the first take, I kind of say, okay, it can go over to Claire, because like the amount of editorializing that's required isn't huge. It's mostly just neatening it up, making sure it all kind of looks and fits nicely together. So that's kind of how I decided to do that. But it's kind of difficult for me to set aside a big pile of time just for new projects. I kind of should, because it would be nice to do like, some odd little different things, because then like odd things could just appear out of nowhere. Like me setting aside just basically like 2 or 3 days was how I was able to do the New Vegas Choose Your Own Apocalypse, and I'd love to make a sequel to that. Because now, of course, annotations are dead. So as a result, it would be nice to try and use the new like card system at the end of videos to see if I could actually do something better and neater. Because the way the original was done was basically I just slapped text in the video and then kind of just had an annotation over the top of it, which was kind of cool. But like, if I were to actually have the thumbnails for the videos you were going through to, reading what the choice is, that would be kind of fun as well. Though admittedly, that would mean you could only have it up for like, I think it's 20 seconds at the end of the video. And it would always have to be exactly 20 seconds. And they'd have to appear at the same time, because that's how cards work. But that could be fun. I mean, like, I've been thinking about that, and I need to kind of set aside time for that. Like, I have a plan for how I might be able to do that with Fallout 4, and a kind of Fallout 4 Choose Your Own Adventure type thing. But I'd need to set aside a big pile of time for that. So, yeah, sorry, that answer kind of spun off a bit. The answer is, at some point, yes, on the main channel. I don't know when. John, how's you? I'm worried about going out into the cold. How's Claire? Probably cold. She's normally cold when it's cold. How's Tabby? She's asleep as well. Are you going to EGX Resd? Yes, I've got my tickets, and I've got, like, one of the passes lets me go any day. I do not know what day I will be attending, at this point. I probably... When did I go last year? I can't remember. And also, we've got some events. Me and Claire have got some stuff to do around those few days. I think like one of our friends is visiting us as well. So we need to sort that out. So I don't actually know what day I will be attending. I generally don't know. And as a follow-up question, will I be doing a meet and greet? I don't know. I've never done one before. Or rather, I did a really informal one that was fairly, like, announced quite last minute. Because I sort of hijacked, like, one of the Matt ones at EGX and kind of turned one of the Matt ones into a Matt and John one. I don't know, like, I'm not really 100% sure on them. Like, it's, being a YouTuber is a very public sort of thing. Like, you're kind of very much always expected to be on, if you like. Like, you have to be very enthusiastic and lively and like, while you're recording multiple videos a day, and, when you're online, and, whether you're on Twitter or in the comments or whatever, like, people expect you to be the same, and it kind of eats your life a little bit. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying, it's just my observation. It does it eats a lot of your time, the channel and everything about it. So, like, when you do get those few moments of actually being able to, like, just be quiet and be to yourself, it's quite good. So, like, for me, when you start getting into meet and greets where you're actually saying, okay, and now the channel's gonna, like, enter into the real world space, I'm not 100% on those, to be honest. Because, like, I like to try and keep a little bit of separation, at least, between, like, the channel and IRL stuff. So I don't go into, like, huge amounts of detail. about my personal life or whatever on the channel. I think there are a lot of YouTubers who are more kind of open. Like, you know, if there was something like, you know, wrong in my life, and while I've been doing YouTube stuff, there have been issues I've run into, and there have been personal things that have come up in my immediate family, and I don't talk about those because I try and keep a little bit of separation there, because it's nice to just keep a little bit of your life to yourself. And for me, kind of meet and greets start kind of getting towards the edge of that line. So I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not really 100% keen on them as an idea. But I will think about it. Now, moving straight on to the next question, because this one actually came up a lot. This one came a few times. Quite a few people were asking after Kingdom Come Deliverance. Now, this is one I did want to acknowledge. This is kind of an interesting one, which is, I think Kingdom Come Deliverance is a really interesting game. There's a lot there that's very well put together. I like the way it works. I like the quest structure. I think, aside from, well, there's some kind of bits of it that look really gorgeous and some bits of it that look a little bit scruffy. The visuals are a bit of a mixed bag. The bit that kind of, for me, means, and I did consider it, and I did even like go back and play a bit more of it to see if I thought it worked. The reason why I don't think it works as a series, for me at least, is the pacing and the combat. Which is, it's a very slow game. A lot of stuff is very, very slow, and padded is not the right word, but there's a lot of stuff that kind of decides to take role-playing and things being kind of as realistic as possible within certain, you know, reasonable limits. It takes those to such an extreme, I find it makes the game too slow to make good videos out of. Like, the last 10 minutes of that video that I made, I think the video is about an hour long, the last 10 minutes of it were about an hour of recording, because I cut out so much. So it's like, okay, here's a long cutscene, and here's me just wandering around, and here's me just going to find some food and eating it. Right, now I need to go and find my bed. This is not interesting stuff. So like, while I did commentate it while I was recording, it's just like, okay, I'm going to cut all of this out, because this isn't particularly interesting. It's just day-to-day housekeeping. And there's a lot of that. So, you know, I got into the habit when I played a bit more of just kind of thinking, okay, so, you know, I need to go out, and I need to, like, do some poaching and catch some animals. I need to, like, you know, make sure I have a wash so I don't have any, like, debuffs in terms of my speech skills, so I'm not covered in mud, and etc, etc, etc. And I need to, like, you know, I need to practice fighting, because the fighting is kind of awkward, and I find it a bit weird. I'll get to the fighting in its own bit. I just found that, like, I could play for hours, and when I actually, like, wanted to edit it down, it only became, like, a 10-15 minute video, because the amount of stuff I actually looked at and just thought, yeah, this is interesting, exciting stuff where progress is being made, was really, really low. And the kind of, you know, the exciting bit, I suppose, if you like, is the combat. And I don't enjoy the combat. Like, I don't think it works very well. And I don't think it's just because I don't enjoy a system of, okay, you know, hold your weapon in a certain position to parry and attack in a particular direction. That I like, because when For Honor did it, I really actually quite enjoyed For Honor. I had a nice time playing For Honor. I thought that actually worked pretty well. Not enough for me to go back and play it any further, but like, I thought, okay, that's a nice system. I get it. It works nicely. I think it all kind of fits together pretty well. For me, I just didn't feel like Kingdom Come Deliverance's combat worked for me. And clearly it does work for some people. And the other thing was the archery, which was, I really like, you know, doing a bit of archery. Because I thought, okay, well, if I actually, you know, I don't really enjoy the hand-to-hand combat, then basically I'll see if I can scrum it up and stealth arch. And the archery's just bad. And I'm guessing it's, like, supposed to be, and you're supposed to have to practice with it for bloody hours on end. But, like, for me, the pace that the game basically required you to take the slow progress up to skilling up, I didn't enjoy it. I found it just too slow. There was too much stuff where it was just, I'm not making any progress. There was too much combat that I just wasn't enjoying. And I found that in general, like, the combat was more frustrating than anything else. So there were just too many barriers, which is a real shame, because actually, like, if I was probably going to do one thing with that, what I'd probably do would be I'd play it on like whatever the easiest difficulty setting is and just say, you know what, I don't care about the combat, so I'm going to make the combat as ludicrously easy as possible so I can basically just hack my way through that and screw it. But then I know for a fact the comments would be intolerable and all the fans of Kingdom Come Deliverance would be like, oh no, you can't play it on that difficulty, you're missing the point. So as a result, I did consider it, but it's just not quite for me as a series. I admire the game. I like a lot of the decisions it makes, but I don't think it's actually series material, because I don't think I could make entertaining videos that I would enjoy putting together out of it. So that's why that's not becoming a series. And also, do I enjoy swimming? Not so much, to be honest. I've never been desperately keen on swimming. I'm much happier out of water. If you didn't study classics, what would you have liked to study? I probably would have ended up doing maths, actually. Because after I actually elected to take Latin Ancient Greek for my A-levels, the person who was head of maths, the teacher at my school, actually confronted me. Said, why are you not doing maths and further maths? Because he'd been expecting me to actually do that because I was very good at maths back in those days. I'm still pretty good at maths. Like, I can do, arithmetic very fast in my head and whatever. But unfortunately, yeah, these days I've probably forgotten some of the more complex bits of maths, and I never did maths A-level. So, yeah, I probably would have ended up doing maths if I hadn't done classics, because back in those days I was very, very good at it. And have I ever played Sleeping Dogs? No, I've owned it for bloody ages, and I think it looks really cool. And I would at some point like to do maybe a mini-series. Like, it strikes me as a really good candidate for like a midweek mini-series. Just doing like the first act or the first few missions or the first 10 hours or something. Actually, I don't know how long it is. Like, if it's a short game, I could try and rush it. But as I understand it, it's actually quite a long game. So probably not. But yeah, I expect to see that at some point as a midweek mini-series. What developer would you like to see tackle an established franchise? Oh, that's an interesting question. Though it's mainly just which franchise do I want Obsidian to play with? Just want Obsidian to play with stuff, it'll be fine. Basically, just give Obsidian control of everything and make sure they've got enough money to get Chris Avellone and Jay Sawyer involved in everything. Just basically clone Jay Sawyer, that's what I'm saying. I know the game's getting old. Would you ever do a Plague Inc. episode? Never say never, but it's not really one that's on my radar to do anytime soon. What is Tabby's favourite toy? Ooh, good question. That's divided between two. Basically, if she's playing by herself, she just wants to, pick something up and bat it around and sit in it and whatever. Then she's got a little fluffy beaver toy that's full of catnip. If it's a toy that she wants to play with the humans, because she doesn't like the humans touching her drug beaver, then it's Drug Spider, who's a little spider, also full of catnip, that's on the end of, like, an elastic string thing. So she likes playing with us, with Drug Spider, and she likes playing, if she's just playing by herself, with Drug Beaver. I watched the Red Nose Day Superfight video with Dan where you try and kill your bastard child and baby mama. Where did you get such a dark sense of humour? That's a really fun video, by the way. It's if you just search for Nerd Cubed Superfight, you'll find that it was a live stream I did with Dan for Red Nose Day. There's some really dark, fun moments in that as well. My dark sense of humour is not atypical for Britain. Like, there's a lot of dark humour or gallows humour in Britain. I think it probably comes partly from the fact my favourite comedians are very dark. So I kind of started watching Armando Iannucci and Chris Morris stuff a long time ago. And some of that gets really cocking dark, like Day to Day and Brass Eye. Actually, if you're in America, I'm pretty sure you either just have or are about to get The Death of Stalin by Armando Iannucci. That was my favourite film last year. It's just about to come out in America, or already has. I can't remember exactly when it comes out. Seriously, you should go and see that because it's absolutely flipping hilarious. After your Twitter rant on Troy, Fall of a City on the BBC, what would your Dreamcast be for an adaptation of the Iliad? Honestly, I think the Iliad is pretty much unfilmable, because the problem is, whether you're dealing with gods or the heroes of the Greek Golden Age, you're supposed to be dealing with people who you literally look at and these people are superhuman. They're not like you and me. They can't be normal people. I think it's kind of impossible to cast them, therefore. When I was thinking about it, I generally did think about it, when I was complaining about how terrible the casting was in Troy, Fall of a City, I was thinking, okay, well, what would I do instead? And I can't think of a solution. I don't think it's filmable, because the whole point is they can't look like people. And I was half wondering if the only way to do it would be to actually do CGI for the heroes. Like, the rest of it is, like, normal actors, but, like, the heroes and gods have to be CGI, and they have to deliberately look slightly uncanny and, like, completely not human, and, like, be slightly taller than the average person. Because, like, I'm pretty sure, like, in multiple tragedies and in epics, Ajax is described as basically being... I don't think we actually get, like, an exact height for him, but the implication is, like, he stands significantly over the top of normal men. So, like, you know, he can't really be played by a normal person. So, like, you'd have Ajax as, like, you know, an 8-foot-tall giant ogre of a man, for example. And I don't know whether that would work. It would probably look stupid and silly, and it's a terrible idea. But, like, it's the only solution I can come up with, to be honest. And a follow-up question on the same topic. What were my thoughts on Troy, starring Brad Pitt and Orlando Bloom? Well, I'll tell you what, having seen Troy Fall of a City, it does make me think slightly better of Troy. That's certainly true. Yeah, Troy was pretty bad. I mean, like, as just an action film, it's okay. But as an adaptation of the Iliad, no. Just no. I notice your tone is very different based on the platform you're talking from, be it Twitter, YouTube, or Nerdcubed. Most polite on YouTube, slightly filtered on Twitter, downright bonkers when you, Matt, and Dan are locked in Desert Bus together. Which platform do you consider most captures the real you, and the real world Reed Clare has to put up with? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. That's a really good question. Because, like, it's very difficult to, like, just kind of break yourself down and define yourself as, like, one character. Nobody is just one person. Everybody is different people, depending on what mood they're in. Like, you know, if you met someone for the first time and had a conversation with them when they were having a really bad day, if they were having a really good day, you might come to a completely different understanding of what their personality is. Like, there's no one thing I look at and think, yeah, that's the real John right there, and all the other Johns, they're just pretenders. They're all me to different extents, you know, understandably. How do I even... Oh, yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear that in the background. That was Claire laughing hysterically, probably at Stormworks. There we go, that's what's happening there. Honestly, I don't know which captures the real me the best. Maybe Twitter, in some ways, because Twitter tends to be, like, when I have, like, you know, an immediate reaction to something, I post it to Twitter, so it's the least likely to be filtered, I suppose. But then maybe, in all fairness, the live streams, being completely live, are totally unfiltered. So maybe I suppose Twitter and the live streams give you a better look in, like, my unfiltered thought process, I guess, but I don't really feel like that's a satisfactory answer. I'm not really sure if I can give you one, just because there's no easy way to answer that. Have you seen the Papers, Please short film? No, I hadn't even heard of that before you actually asked the question. I think it might be the best adaptation of a video game that I've seen. Do you know any other good film adaptations? Well, obviously the Super Mario Brothers movie, because that's just incredible. Genuinely, it's worth a watch, because it's so weird. It's so weird and makes so little sense and is just so utterly, bafflingly nothing to do with the games. It's so worth a watch. It's amazing. John, all your videos seem to be 2 times as long. Is there a reason? I assume that means you think my recent videos have been very long. They have, actually. It's been an odd coincidence. There happen to have been quite a few videos that have been over an hour recently. No particular reason for that. In fact, actually, about like a month ago, there was a spate of slightly shorter, more kind of heavily edited down videos. Generally, like, there's no particular reason for that. It's just like, if I come across a game I think is really interesting, I want to give it all the attention of a proper hour-long video. Whereas if there's a game that I think just makes a fun video, even if I'm not, like, the biggest fan of the game, that doesn't mean I think it's bad, it just means I don't think it's amazing, then often that gets edited down to a kind of a much more focused, comical 30 minutes. Also, would you ever play something like Drawn to Life where you have to draw to solve problems? I have considered it, and in fact, actually, there's something not dissimilar to that coming out soon that I might be making a video of. I haven't actually got code for it or decided whether it's definitely becoming a video, but there is something like that on the horizon, so watch this space. John, just wondering if you've ever played Wasteland 2. Oh, I did a long time ago. Just like really briefly. I don't remember a thing about it though. And yeah, I had heard that indeed the original Fallout is based in the original Wasteland, and they've grown up together, except it's kind of interesting that now Wasteland 2 is more like traditional but slightly updated Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, whereas Fallout 3 into Fallout 4 have gone off in their own little direction as well. So absolutely, it's something I have considered doing a series on at some point. It's been kind of on the back burner for a long time, but it might well happen at some point. Given the propensity of Latin C's being pronounced as K's, do we know for definite that Cicero wasn't pronounced Cicero? On the contrary, by pure coincidence, pretty much the one period of Latin which we know the most about in terms of like standardization of spellings and grammar and pronunciation kind of falls around the late Republican, early Imperial period, which is broadly when Cicero was around. So as a result of that, in fact, we can actually be extremely confident, or well, as confident as we can be with a dead language, that Cicero would have been pronounced Cicero, yes. What would an Ostrogothic king do on the Enterprise where he even commanded the vessel? Probably immediately push the wrong button. This is a reference, by the way, to Dan's flipping the NerdCube Paradox video, which just contains a sick burn at my expense. And neither Dan nor Matt told me it was going to happen. I literally just sat down and watched that because I watched Dan's videos. And the second sketch in was just, oh, it's John. It's like, oh, great. Thanks, guys. And you know, it's very sweet of them. It's very kind of them to kind of, you know, have me as a little background presence in the video. It's very, very kind of them indeed. But they didn't tell me it was going to happen. So that really did take me by surprise. And is there a single historical moment or person you love unconditionally above all others? Aristophanes! Aristophanes, the comic playwright of ancient Greece, because he's very, very funny, but also very, very tragic, because he like lives through the fall of his own city and then afterwards stops writing political plays. He writes very, very political plays all about how to save Athens, and then Athens wasn't saved, and then he stopped writing political plays. He just wrote these kind of weird, completely apolitical plays afterwards, and it's kind of tragic. It's kind of tragic. I love that guy. I just want to give him a hug, damn it. In Fallout 4 Frost videos, you sound increasingly frustrated with the game as the series goes on. Have you considered halting it there and revisiting the game later from the beginning after the mod has matured more? No, because I think that's kind of the point. Like, I don't think the game's going to get less frustrating as they reiterate it. If anything, I think they're going to make it more frustrating. Because I think that's kind of the point. I think that's what the guys making it wants it to be. Like, if we find ways to stop it being frustrating, he will take those out and patch them to make it more and more difficult. And I think that's kind of the point. And that's what I kind of like about that series. They kind of, you know, the episodes, they kind of swing wildly between I'm so frustrated and I see absolutely no way out of this and I'm absolutely doomed and I'm going to cancel this series in 10 minutes, through to, oh my goodness, I've just come across this one stockpile of supplies, everything's good, everything's amazing, now I can take on the world! And I like kind of like the fact it swings between those two, because it makes the series quite unpredictable. So like, despite the frustrations, I have still had fun playing it, and people seem to really enjoy watching it. So despite the problems with it, I do actually want to continue with it, and I'm really hoping I can actually get to the end of the main plot. Hopefully, at least. Can you do this BuzzFeed quiz and tell us what kind of egg you are? I went and did it because I saw this question ahead of time. I am a raw egg. And I don't know whether that's an insult or a compliment. It feels like an insult to me, but I am indeed a raw egg, apparently. A recommendation for Mountain Blade. Oh, this is interesting. I get Mountain Blade a lot, but this is the first time I've seen Mountain Blade Prophecy of Pendor at some point. Intriguing. That I'm not familiar with. Like, I know Mountain Blade comes up a lot, so I am planning to get to it at some point in the not too distant future. However, Prophecy of Pendor, I don't know precisely what that is, whether that's like standalone DLC or a DLC campaign for it or whatever, or maybe a fan mod. I have no idea, I'll need to look into that. But yes, Mountain Blade at some point. I can't speak to Prophecy of Pendor because I don't know exactly what that is. Have you heard of the MATN mod for Fallout 4? Yes, indeed, because the person who actually made it, me and them briefly chatted about, like, you know, what should and shouldn't be in it. So hopefully that mod's actually appropriate for use when we do actually do the run. And number two, what's the expected date for the first episode of Fallout 4 You Only Live Once? I do not know, because I kind of like alternating between Fallout games, and not always doing like one series followed by another series in the same game. So I want to do something else with a different kind of big transformation mod in a different Fallout game after I'm finished up with Frost, which I don't know how long that's going to take. I mean, once we actually get down to the glowing sea, like at that point we'll have gone over to the far east of the map, we'll have gone up to the far north, we'll have gone west and down towards the glowing sea. Arguably, it's likely they'll send me deeper into the glowing sea, but I don't know. So at that point, there's only so many places to go, really. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say I know I need to go back to the Coast Guard at some point, because of that terminal I haven't been able to open, so presumably I need to get a password at some point for that. I mean, what are the big areas that we haven't actually been into yet? There's kind of the swampy area in the south and the southwest, and there's various bits of the city, like, for example, there's the flooded area over on the east of the city close by to the ocean, and I suppose it strikes me as quite likely that the game might decide to repurpose one of the big skyscrapers. Though actually, if they were to do that, presumably they'd have had to have locked it off in advance. Otherwise, it's a bit too close by to where large numbers of the actual, the metro stops come out. So, like, if I had to guess, I'd say, oh, they're totally going to repurpose, like, say, the Mass Fusion building. Or, what's the name of the tower? What's the name of the tower with the radio guy where you get strong? I forget the name of the tower now. The Super Mutant Tower. Anyway, so I'd probably expect them to reuse one of those at some point. So maybe I'm going down to the swamp. Maybe I'm going back into the city to climb that thing. But yeah, if I was to do that, presumably it would have to be a scenario where, like it was locked off somehow. Like there was a password block of an elevator or something like that. I don't know. Where else haven't I been that's kind of big and interesting? Arguably, at some point, the game might send me up to something close by to Sanctuary, and I just didn't get to it when I was there. Actually, in all fairness, I suppose... Well, actually, okay. Here's what I know so far. So, when I was actually in and around Sanctuary and Concord, the game was all like, oh, yeah, like, you know, you're done with surviving. And then I found additional notes from that guy who said, I'm going to go to the, whatever it's called, the Boylston Club. Now, that arguably means probably the game's expecting you to go next to the club that's nearby to the Boston Comedy area where Swan's Pond is. And presumably, if I had to guess, I'd say there's probably going to be a note there that sends you off to Libertalia, and that's where you pick up the route I'm currently on. But I'm not supposed to have found the lifeguard yet. I just found the lifeguard place by accident when I got chased in there by ghouls. So, yeah. I'm actually... Wait, what was the question again? Hang on, what was the question? I've got completely lost here. Oh yeah, when's Fallout 4 You Only Live Once? Okay, so the answer to that is... Sorry, I got miles off topic there. The answer is I want to finish up Frost, however long that takes. I want to do something else. And then I'm thinking, therefore, 2 series away is Fallout 4 You Only Live Once. Unless I think of something else I want to do in the meantime. But I'm imagining that's roughly how it's going to go. Have I ever played Creeper World? No. It's a strategy game, used to be a Flash game. Now it has a full game called Creeper World 3 that is on Steam. I'm afraid I know nothing about it, but I will look into it after this is done. I've really been enjoying Frost. Are there any other super masochistic experiences you've enjoyed over the years in spite of or because of their unforgiving nature? Honestly, no. I think it's something that's very hard to do, and I think you could only really do it in, like, a game where you know it already really, really well. Like, I can't really think of an example. There is actually a mini-series I've already recorded that's coming up that's kind of set in a not entirely dissimilar sort of environment, so I won't spoil it. But there is something coming up in the not-too-distant future I have already recorded that is not dissimilar, that I had a pretty good time with. It's not a spectacularly good time. Not as much fun as I've had with Frost. It didn't kind of work quite as well for me. But that's not saying it's a worse game. It's just saying that, like, because I know Fallout pretty well, I can work my way and navigate my way through Frost a bit more effectively. So, I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose technically the first time I actually ever played the new survival mode in Fallout 4, arguably, like, that was actually a similar experience to Frost, I suppose. So, yeah, I can't really think of an example outside of Fallout, aside from one little thing that's coming up soon. What are your thoughts on the planned adaptation of Consider Phlebas, which is, being made by, I think it's Amazon, at some point soon, being adapted from the Ian M. Banks novel? I think it's a really interesting one to choose first, because it's super gross. Like, I don't think this is a spoiler. The very first scene, like literally the opening of the book, is one of the main characters inside a dungeon cell being drowned in urine, poo, and vomit. That's literally the first scene of the book. It's one of our characters inside a cell, up to his neck in urine, poo, and vomit, and that level of urine, poo, and vomit is slowly rising and then covers his mouth and nose. Like, that's the opening. And that's not the most gross, disgusting thing in the book. So I find it a really interesting one to adapt, because even though I think it's really cool they're adapting the culture novels, I'm not convinced I'm going to want to watch it, because it sounds like it might be super gross unless they cut out a lot. John, can you answer the next couple of questions in the voice of American John? Alright, very well then. Loving your XCOM playthrough. Any chance you'll explore other squad games like Wasteland 2? Speak of the devil, that just came up earlier. Also, Clem mentioned a book she was interested in that involved Eurovision but with death. Has she seen Get Swifty episode of Rick and Morty, which is basically that plot? Yes, indeed, we watched that together. Not our favourite episode, but we did think it was pretty darn good. Couple of questions. Thoughts on the live services model AAA devs are... Okay, I'm gonna skip that one as American John, because that's actually quite long. Favourite quest line in Fallout New Vegas? I do always say... Beyond the beef. Okay, that's 2. I can go back to normal. So, live services. Live services. This is interesting, and I'm not keen on it, for the most part. I mean, like, I can understand how some things, if they're going to be the free-to-play model, and you're getting the game for free, and they've got server costs to maintain over time, are going to have, like, some form of monetization, because, like, you know, you need to pay for the servers on an ongoing basis. Fine. Okay. But yeah, the fact that AAA devs are doing it increasingly where you pay full price for the game up front and then you also continue to get milked for microtransactions anyway, that leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Now, some things do it better than others. Like, for example, I had a really nice time playing Assassin's Creed Origins, and I never once felt like there was any pressure or prevalence of the microtransactions actually in the game. Like, I had a perfectly nice time upgrading my armor, upgrading my whatever, just using the materials that were floating around, and I didn't feel like I actually was in any way being pressured to do that. But then it's always hard for me to comment, because it's very, very rare I actually finish games. Like, very often what I'll do is I will dive into a game, I'll just kind of acclimatise myself to it for a little bit, and then I'll kind of like record it, and I'll record the first few hours, and I'll give my verdict on the first few hours, and then I'll move on. Which makes me kind of almost singularly badly placed to comment on microtransactions, because of course the entire model depends on you having a nice time up front, and you don't push the microtransactions, absolutely don't up front. You know, XP is flowing in, your character's leveling up, it's super easy to upgrade your gear. Give people a nice time up front so they enjoy the game and get invested in the game. And then slowly over time, make it more and more grindy once they're already addicted and once they've already put plenty of hours in and once they want to see how it goes in terms of the story. Because then sunken cost fallacy digs in and you think, okay, well, I've already invested this much time, so I want to get a bit further and see the next thing up, and I could spend 5 hours grinding to unlock that, or I could just pay £1. It's only £1. Okay, now I'm up to the next level. Oh, but look at that over there. Well, that's only 50p. Yeah, the problem is that model kind of depends on it being, yeah, it kind of depends on it being a little bit on the eviler side as time goes by. So I'm not keen. Also, I realised because I was distracted by being American John, I didn't actually specifically answer... Wait, yes I did. I did answer the Wasteland 2 question because I acknowledged, okay, oh, you see, American John just throws me the hell off. On Matt's next birthday, can you sing to him while playing the ukulele to be the best present ever? I agree, I should do that. What is the status of the following games? Oh, I like an efficient question. Katawa Shouju, been recommended many times. In terms of visual novels, I like the ones that are just utterly bananas. As opposed to just kind of like, well, I've heard that one's a little bit weird in places, but like for the most part, it's just a slightly interesting alternative take on the genre. So like, to be honest, I'd probably rather do one that's just utterly weird and mad rather than that. So I might get to it at some point, but I'm not 100% sure. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I've been meaning to make that a little mini-series. Either a midweek mini-series or like a series taking the spot of, you know, something like the current schedule for Skyrim for some time. I just don't know whether people will be super into it or not. So what I'm planning to do at some point this year, I don't know when, is I'll probably like record one part and I'll like use that as like a one-off, and I'll see how it does, and use that as a decision whether or not to continue it. Doki Doki Literature, yeah, sorry, that's not for me. It's been totally spoilt for me by fans of the game, completely overhyping it, and also the fact that some people who've, like, you know, been trying to sell it to me, like, have basically managed to, in a row, spoil all the twists. So I know everything that's going to happen, and it just doesn't interest me anymore. It's unfortunately one of those fandoms where the fans got so excited about trying to push it that, as a result, they kind of spoiled it for the people who hadn't played it yet, so at this point, I'm just not interested in playing it anymore because it's been overhyped to hell, and I know all the things going to happen in it. So, yeah, sorry, that one's not going to happen. Any plans for this year's M80 anniversary? Actually, no. I don't have plans yet. I don't know what I'm going to do for the baking anniversary this year that's coming up in a few months. However, I do know what I want to do for the April 1st video, and that's going to be interesting. Okay, so Yes. Any new games on the horizon you have your eye on? Vampire or Vampire, it's possibly supposed to be pronounced, it's spelled with a Y. That got delayed into this year. That's interesting. And I've got a good feeling about Far Cry 5, because I really enjoyed Far Cry 3 and 4. Primal didn't do it for me, but 5 seems to be getting back to how 4 was. So hopefully, Far Cry 5 is good. Have you played Her Majesty's Spiffing? No, I saw the trailer a while back, and I thought it looked okay, but not spectacular. I might get to it at some point, but it's not really, like, high up the list at the minute. Hi, John. Any new merch on the horizon? Actually, no. We should probably check in with that. The merch, in all fairness, like, the merch sells a little bit, but, like, we don't really sell much merchandise at all. Like, there are some YouTube channels that are really dependent on merch sales, and that's a big thing they push all the time. And that's possibly, like, partly my fault, because I don't like pushing, like, merch. I don't like pushing the Patreon. Like, I like them just being there, and if people want to find them and want to support us, that's great. But, like, I wouldn't feel good being, like, you know, at the end of every video, and by the way, check out links below for the new merchandise. You know, this week only you get 10% off these shirts. So, like, we haven't really been pushing the new merch particularly hard recently. The most recent was the pin badge that I thought were really cool. They didn't actually sell very well. We barely sold any at all, really. So we should probably check in with that at some point. Because, yeah, we were struggling to find a good supplier for the Many a True Nerd coasters that I would still like to be a thing, if only because I'd like to own a set, damn it. And have you contemplated adding any new perks for the patrons? Honestly, I'm not sure what I'd do at this point, because, like, pretty much, I mean, what can we do other than, like, starting to gate videos or something? I've always said, like, I don't want to gate videos. That's the kind of the last thing I would do. So I guess there's, like, I mean, I'm really not sure what I could do, really. I mean, we do this. There's the Discord, the VIP lounge on the Discord. There's the discount for all of the merch. I try and do, like, you know, whenever I get, like, sent extra codes by devs, I do try and give them away here. So there's occasional code giveaways. Like, if you've got ideas for stuff, feel free to recommend them or suggest them. I'm not really sure what we'd add in at this point. A very important question. Any news about Brush the cat that I've been seeing nearby, and I'm not sure whether she's homeless or not, and I've been feeling bad about her. I haven't seen Brush recently, and that actually kind of makes me a bit more worried, because, as I said earlier, it's really cold and snowing right now, so if Brush doesn't have a home, I'm actually kind of worried about Brush. So I'm really hoping that Brush is just a slightly skittish cat that is still an outdoor cat, and Brush is currently snuggled away inside by a fire somewhere, because otherwise I'm a bit concerned about Brush, and genuinely I have been a little bit worried about her in this weather. Given the entertainment value tension adds to some of your playthroughs, like YOLO Frost, do you ever struggle to maintain a level of interest in the series when the tension is mostly gone due to being ludicrously overpowered, i.e. late game in a Bethesda title? It depends. Like, very often, like, when that happens, I kind of try and, like, impose little rules on myself, for example, to make things a bit more interesting. Like, say, when I actually go into, say, a DLC, if I do a DLC really late when I'm very, very powerful, I say things like, okay, but I'm only going to allow myself to use, like, equipment and weapons from this DLC for fun. I think I did that in, when I was doing the J Sawyer Survival in New Vegas. I'm pretty sure I did that for Old World Blues and also Did I do that for all the DLC? I think I might have done that for all the DLC. I honestly can't remember, actually. But yeah, I kind of did that sort of thing. So I tend to kind of try and give myself some extra restrictions to keep the tension going on. But yeah, I do try and, like, you know, fix that as far as I can. Do you plan on doing another community multiplayer event in the foreseeable future? If so, do you already have a particular game in mind? I did have a few. Like, I still would like to do PlanetSide 2 at some point, and potentially that would be, I don't know what version that would be. I think I already have that on PS4, actually, for the Conscript. But then the GTA event, that was, actually, the GTA event was on PS4, then we did Roller Coaster Tycoon, that was on PC, so if it was on console again, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But yet, it's kind of a case of finding the right game and then also finding a good slot for it. So I don't know exactly when, but you're right, that's a good reminder. I should actually try and get that locked in at some point. What I kind of learned from the Roller Coaster Tycoon one is I shouldn't try and live stream it at the same time. Like, I should do one or the other. It's too much to try and live stream it as well as actually doing the interaction. So it wouldn't be live streamed. That would just be done, like, with just us. What's your favourite period of history and why? Bit of a boring answer, to be honest, but 5th century BC Athens. Just because, yeah, I already know quite a lot about it, so I always just like learning a little bit more. It's just an era where I know a lot about the literature and the history, so, you know, I just feel like I have a good grasp on it, which is quite a boring answer, but I'm afraid, unfortunately, it's the true one. What historical period would you most like to learn more about? Ooh, post-Roman Britain, which I don't know much about, but I'd really love to learn more about, like, what immediately happened culturally and in other ways, like immediately after Rome basically said, yeah, we can't be arsed with this Britain thing anymore, and like how we got from that point over the kind of following 100 years towards the period that I know a bit more about in like 9th, 10th century British history. But there's kind of a gap of a few hundred years in there that I'd like to know more about. I don't know how much there is that we actually know for certain. I think it's a bit of a blurry period where there's not a huge number of primary sources, but I would like to know more about it. John, there are 12 innocent colossi patiently waiting to be murdered. Please proceed. I might do a follow-up live stream for Shadows of the Colossus at some point. I don't know. I have been considering it. Will the Beast Battle Simulator ever be back? I have been thinking at some point. At some point, the next time there's a big football tournament, I might bring it back as a prediction engine. Possibly. I have been considering that. John, if you could change one component, technical or content-based, of each of the Fallout games you've played, what would you change? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. You know what? I probably don't know enough about the older Fallouts to really answer that, to be honest. So I'm not really in a position to go into that. Alright, so Fallout 3, I'd probably say weapon variety. To be honest, like, one of the things that always strikes me when I go back to Fallout 3 is, like, the guns are a fairly limited and mostly uninspiring bunch. So it would be fun to have more in the way of weapon customization, personalization, and variety in those games. Fallout 4, it's just a case of quest structure and, you know, things like, say, factions. Obviously, basically, I just want a New Vegas-ify Fallout 4. There's a lot that could be taken in, like, you know, the ethos and direction of New Vegas that could be applied to Fallout 4 to make it a lot better. Of course, you could do the same to Fallout 3, but it feels kind of unfair to ask Fallout 3 to conform to a game that didn't even exist when Fallout 3 came out. Fallout New Vegas is a difficult one, but I suppose the only thing I can really say is actually the way gunplay operates. Like, honestly, I think this is the one thing Fallout 4 does a lot better than New Vegas or 3. Like, I think the gunplay is a lot more fun in Fallout 4. When you actually get into a scrap, you've got the more interesting weapons. Throwables are great in Fallout 4. Gun customization and all of that is fun in Fallout 4. So just take the actual kind of the gunplay aspect of 4 and move it back into New Vegas, and I think that would actually improve it. What would you choose as your Jedi name? I would like to be, as my Jedi name, Darth Sinistra, where my first name is just Darth and my surname is Sinistra, because I just come from a planet where Darth is just a common first name, just to basically mess with the Jedi. And the convenient thing about being called Darth Sinistra is, like, when you actually become a Sith, you can just keep your existing given name, so you don't need to reprint all your business cards. It's very bloody convenient. John, I was looking at NerdCube's Patreon. I noticed something interesting. He has 8 times as many YouTube subscribers as you do, but only about 75% more patrons, and really not all that much more pledged per month. Looking at Jenny Nicholson's Patreon, similar results. Then I got lazy and stopped looking. Anyway, what this means is that any random person who subscribes to you on YouTube is relatively quite likely to support you here and tends to pledge a high amount per month. Any thoughts on why this is? It is an interesting question. I think like there's an element of demographics in it, which is, I know from speaking to Matt, that the people who are subscribers to our channel tend to skew a little bit older. And logically, you'd assume people who are a bit older are more likely to have, credit or debit cards and are more likely to be in work and have a bit of disposable income. So I suppose that's probably a factor of it. Plus, you can't really always look at actual numbers of subscribers as an actual accurate reflection of what's the active subscriber base. If you were to actually compare the number of views, actually no, that's not fair either, because number of views is a function of number of videos. I think if we were to try and figure out how many active subscribers that me versus Dan had, at that point, you're probably in a situation where it's not going to be 8 times more. He'll definitely have more than me, absolutely, because his videos get more views. But again, that's slightly skewed from the fact his videos are now a little bit less frequent, so they've become slightly more like events. So maybe at that point, people are more likely to watch them as they come out. And okay, it's very hard to calculate. But what I'd say is, yeah, probably as an absolute number, there's definitely more people in the NerdQ community who are probably subscribers but not actually active viewers and thus likely to engage as there are in ours. And I'd say a greater proportion of our subscriber base is probably still active. And the absolute minimum threshold for even considering giving on Patreon would be you're an active subscriber, but obviously it's very difficult to actually measure that number. So I think those two factors together probably help explain it. Who is your favourite superhero? I typically say Spider-Man. I think I have a particular fondness for Spider-Man because I really like the Spider-Man animated series that was on, in the UK it was on Fox Kids. When I was young, that was doing the rounds on Fox Kids. And it looks so retro now because they tried to do like stuff with like 3D graphics for Swinging Through the City. It looks so bad these days. It's hilarious. But yeah, I always kind of felt very fond of Spider-Man for that reason, which is really cool to see him in the MCU now. It's really cool because I think actually, yeah, the MCU's done a good job with him so far. I really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming. So that's just really, really cool. And I'm looking forward to the fact it looks like he's going to have a fairly big, prominent role in the first part of Infinity War. Oh, I'm so looking forward to Infinity War. I'm so hyped. What's the most game-breaking experience you've ever had? Once upon a time, many, many years ago, I had a second-hand copy of Pokemon Red that completely bugged out on me, and like I'd never done like the missing no glitch on it or anything, though possibly because it was secondhand, maybe the old person who had it had, and I don't think like, I thought if you started a new game it didn't carry over, but maybe it causes permanent damage to something, I don't know. But like it would just freak out occasionally, and like when you were walking, the scenery behind you would kind of weirdly just kind of like slide and smear, I don't know what the technical term for it is, and like collision detection just wouldn't work and you just walk straight through buildings, you wouldn't be able to interact with anything. It was just a very weird, slightly broken cartridge. Something just clearly went very wrong with that cartridge. How are you liking XCOM? Loving it. Having a great time with XCOM. I've really just had an absolutely lovely time with it. It's a really good game. Any plans to move on to XCOM 2 after? No, like I was saying earlier, like I don't like going straight from one thing directly into something very similar as an immediate sequel. So what I'd probably do would be like, I'll finish up XCOM, I'll do something else as a Friday series, and then I'll consider XCOM 2. I feel like that's the best way to do it. A clarification on last month, where Sarah did indeed ask me about The Long Dark, but meant to ask about Near Death. Near Death was the exploring in the night of Antarctica one, wasn't it? Yeah, that actually went weirdly well. The interesting thing is, like, sometimes when, like, games are just little indie games and it's been a while, it's kind of hard to pick them up again, because I'm not really sure who'd, like, be interested in. Like, it might be a really small number of people. Like, I meant to go back to the Turing test, then I never did. And now if I, like, did the Turing test part, I think it's 3, I think I did 2 parts. So if I did the Turing test part 3, I'd be like, what? Part 3? Where's part 2? Oh, it was a year and a half ago. Okay, then. You know, there's like, you know, 20,000 subscribers, or no, way more than that. There's like, you know, probably like 50 to 100,000 subscribers-ish who, like, you know, have signed up since I did that series, who have no idea why this is a part 3 or what this game is, but that's kind of why it's a bit awkward. So I don't know whether we'll ever kind of complete Near Death. Like, Near Death was pretty fun, but I don't know whether it's good enough to go back and do a series on, to be honest. Like, not everything can always have a series. Inspired by your channel, I've just started making gaming videos of my own. Good for you! Do you think there is a good method to get attention for a new channel now the environment is so much more crowded than it was when MATN started? Well, the fun thing is, when I started, like, the absolutely people actually saying at that point, oh, it's so crowded these days. Like, the people who started 4 years ago, like, they've got it so easy. They just got to basically get on gold-lined streets. But, like, the internet, this analogy does not even remotely work. And now here we are, like, 4 or 5 years later, and now people are saying to me, I've just started. But it's so much more crowded than 4 or 5 years ago, as if, like, the time I started was, like, the easy time. So I strongly suspect that, like, 4 years before I started, people were like, oh my goodness, it's so difficult to start a YouTube channel these days. Basically, and I think actually someone else asked a similar question down below, like someone says, like, is this a good time to start? Like, pretty much the right time to start a YouTube channel is as soon as possible, because I do agree it's probably got progressively more crowded over time. People can still make it. And everyone always says, oh no, I can't do it now, because it used to be so easy, but now you can't do it anymore. But then some people who do start now will make it, and then, like, you know, in a few years' time, people say, well, that person got in at the right time, but I couldn't do that. And some people start at that point, and they'll make it. And yeah, it probably has got harder. But I think, like, the advice I'd give would probably be kind of pretty much the same as it was 4 years ago, which is find something that you are uniquely qualified to do. Some people might get lucky with total copycatting and just basically try and find something that's popular right now and just do that. I think the best strategy is to find something that you are uniquely qualified for. And that can be uniquely qualified in any direction. Like, find something that you are very good at or very knowledgeable at. Find a game that you know so damn well that other people who like that game probably don't know it as well, so you can show them interesting things. Find something that you really, truly hate and do, like, the most long-winded, detailed takedown of it. Find something that you're absolutely passionate about, even if you're not actually the best at it, where you can be, like, the most enthusiastic person going. Like, try and be the most person. Because what I, like, originally planned to do, like, you know, the very first series I did that kind of did well and kind of got our foot in the door of starting to grow was when we simultaneously did Fallout, New Vegas, No Kill, and Kill Everything. And originally, it was just supposed to be a, hey, let's look at how, you know, well put together Fallout New Vegas is, where you can do it both of these different ways, and the game keeps working around you and figuring out a way to get you to the end, even though you have to go completely different routes. And it's only when I'd started for a bit that I realized, actually, no, the focus for Kill Everything can be entirely comical, because otherwise the killing's going to get boring. So that should be a comical series, and actually, we can take that forward into Fallout 3 and stand it on its own without there needing to be a complementary Fallout 3 No Kill. Whereas New Vegas No Kill is, like, very much a case of, hey, you know, maybe some people don't know that you can do this, and actually, let's try and complete as many quests as we can in the game and see if we can, like, 100% the game without actually killing anyone, which was really, really cool. Which is really, really cool indeed. So that was where I started. So I went for something that I thought I knew really well and tried to make something that, as far as I can tell, like, I think people have done, like, you know, pacifist runs of New Vegas in the past, but I don't think anyone had ever tried to do 100% New Vegas or get as close as possible without doing any killing whatsoever. So I think that was kind of new and interesting, so therefore it got the attention of Fallout fans. So I just recommend you try and do something like that. What's your favourite video you made this month? If you mean this month as in March so far, then it has to be Stormworks, but there's not much March. So you probably mean February, in which case Rust. Because Rust just made me laugh so hard. Oh, Rust was just... What is up with the community of players in Rust? What is wrong with them? Why are they all such psychopaths? Why do people who have put thousands of hours into a game seemingly continue to get pleasure from hunting down and just one-shotting naked noobs on the far side of the map? What's the point? But they seem to enjoy doing it. It's all very, very odd. What's your favourite game just to play for a chilling session? I do, on occasion, just play a bit of Overwatch. I don't make videos of it anymore because, honestly, the Overwatch community, I didn't really enjoy putting out videos for them. Lots of people were really sniffy and rude about it. It struck me as not a particularly friendly, welcoming community to people who just enjoy the game, even if they're not that great at it. So I play a bit of Overwatch for myself, but I don't make videos about it anymore. And the first question directed to Claire, what is your favourite podcast to listen to for good storytelling or just in general?
Ooh, that's kind of tricky because I don't listen to any kind of fictional podcasts or podcasts that like focus on storytelling. One show where I specifically really like how they tell stories within their episodes is Sawbones, which is a medical history show, and they're always talking about like how the old-timey peoples did medicine, and it can be quite gruesome and quite funny, so I'd say probably that one.
John, any other YouTubers that you would recommend? Aside from the ones I mentioned in my recent video, I've recently started watching the whole back catalogue of Up Is Not Jump. In fact, I probably should actually... One thing I've actually been thinking of, hang on, I'll just raise this now. I've been thinking of like putting together maybe like a weekly or fortnightly or monthly, just like little catch-up video. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in gaming that's not really worth me, like, making a new video on. Like, for example, I might play a game when it's in early access, and then, like, you know, a few months later, it launches properly. Now, I'm not going to make a video just about that game again, because it might be very, very similar, and the first video might have done okay, but not worth making a second video for. But I'd still like to acknowledge, hey, I thought this game was pretty good, it's now actually launched, so you might want to go check that out. So I might kind of, like, I'm vaguely been playing with this idea of like a video that I could make like once a month or something where like, hey, you know, this game came out, here's a link to the video I made when it was in early access, I thought it was really good, it's now launched, hey, this game just got a bit of DLC, I thought it was really damn good as well, hey, I've been watching this YouTuber this month, I think they deserve a shout out because they're really cool. So I've been thinking about doing something like that, because yeah, I've been watching like all of Up Is Not Jump's new style videos, because he used to do machinima and he's just changed over to doing like these really cool, ridiculously well edited videos about various games. Like he's done some on VR stuff, he likes talking about VR stuff, he's very, very funny. He's a real talent, one to watch. So I'll give him a shout out on Twitter. But yeah, I kind of feel like I want to kind of do a little kind of like monthly wrap up video where I could also do shout outs, which I think might be a cool idea, but I need to kind of figure out what format I want it to be in. Like, there'd probably be short videos. This wouldn't be long videos at all. This would just be like, hey, here's stuff that happened this month I think is, you know, worthy of note. When Fallout 4 You Only Live Once is done, will that be the end of the Fallout series until Fallout 5? I doubt it. I'll probably always find something new to put out. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that we don't have to wait, like, 7 years for Fallout 5. Though we've already waited, like, you know, how long have we waited? We've already waited over 2. It's already been like 2.25 years, 2.25 years, thereabouts, since Fallout 4. So hopefully we don't have to wait too long, but I suspect we have to deal with the next Elder Scrolls game proper before we actually get to Fallout 5. So I am kind of hoping they do decide to franchise out the license, but given how there was a little bit of controversy and unpleasantness regarding the franchising out of the license when Fallout New Vegas came out, I don't know if they will. I'd love them to, because I'd love there to be another Fallout game. But no, I think, like, you know, we've got a few things I've got planned. We've got Fallout 4 You Only Live Once, which will also, of course, try and do the DLC if we get that far. There'll be Fallout 2 I need to look at some point or other. There'll be big transformation mods. I can turn my attention to. There's some big transformation mods coming out in the not too distant future. At some point, hopefully, they'll finish up the conversion mods where people are trying to make, like, you know, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas inside the Fallout 4 engine. So those would be fun. In fact, that might just be a good excuse just to basically do a fairly vanilla Fallout 3 run, maybe just slightly modded to make it a bit more interesting and harder. That might be fun to do. So I think there's plenty to get on with. It seems you go regularly to Creative Assembly to test out some of the later, more recent Total Wars. I do. Creative Assembly are interesting, which is kind of, once they seem to like you, you get invited to everything. So I get invited to Creative Assembly stuff and kind of get early access to their stuff a lot, which is really, really cool. Could you try and slip in their ears they need to redo the general pre-battle speeches? I will mention it to them next time I'm there, but the one I always tell them to do is, basically, I want new variants of Arrow Cam. I always want more Arrow Cam, damn it. Arrow Cam dropped out at some point, and I want it back. Like, these days you can actually manually fire artillery and whatever, but it's kind of pointless because you basically will always aim worse than the AI will. It's very hard to aim artillery manually, because, like, it's got a big arc to it and stuff, and it's kind of hard to see what you're aiming at. But yes, Potentially, I will mention it to them, but really what I want back is Arrowcam. Which is the best Ian M. Banks novel, and why is it Player of Games? Player of Games is certainly my favourite, but then I'm not really qualified to answer because I've literally only read 2 so far. I've only read Consider Phlebas and Player of Games, so I need to move on and read more. I need to actually go and buy some more, except, I don't want to go outside. Maybe I'll just order them online and make someone bring them to me. That would probably be better. And when are you playing Slay the Spire, which is like FTL crossed with Hand of Fate? Very well, you have my interest. I don't know. Claire, add it to the long list. Let's look that one up. Have you ever done or do you intend to do any collabs on a Nintendo game on someone else's channel? I know you've said that you would love to do a Let's Play, but only when they stop being jerks to YouTubers, so a collab on another channel seems like a good alternative to that happens. It's an interesting idea, but it's also kind of a matter of principle, which is Nintendo being dicks to YouTubers isn't something I want to facilitate or like cover their games at all. To be honest, I would rather do a complete blanket ban until they back down. Because sooner or later, if enough people did that, then they would basically see, they're missing out so much, like, free advertising, basically, for their games, that it's not really a good idea for them to do. So, it's kind of a bit of a thing of principle for me, so I don't see that happening. John, I rewatched your Hatofu boyfriend video recently. I was excited by how emotionally invested you got in the passing of your ghost pigeon boyfriend. How often do games get you emotionally drawn in like that? On occasion. On occasion I do. Actually, haven't played it at the time of recording. I don't know whether I'll... Actually, no, I probably won't get this early. I'll probably get this at the same time as everyone else. I got really into Life is Strange. Like, when I first started playing that, it was just some silly thing I saw and thought, oh, this is ridiculous. It's so silly and angsty and over the top and teen drama, and I'll just kind of make videos kind of, lightheartedly mocking it. Then I got super into it. And now I'm super into Life is Strange. And now I imagine I'm going to be very sad about the bonus episode Farewell, which is basically just going to be the send-off for Max and Chloe. I imagine I'm going to be very emotional. So, it's not often, but it does happen. Do you sometimes feel that you can make a better video than a game actually is, or vice versa, that the video isn't as good as the game actually can be because we see it without experiencing it? The second one, where the video doesn't do the game justice, is I think true for pretty much all virtual reality. Like, it's really difficult to get across virtual reality, which is why I spend a lot of time in virtual reality saying, it's so big! Because it looks really big to me, but to you it's just on a screen. It looks just like everything else, except slightly lower resolution and slightly shaky. So, VR doesn't really work well on YouTube. I love doing it, and I think you can do some fun stuff. Like, it's really fun to be able to, like, basically do physical comedy within a game. So I think, like, you can make really good videos in that regard, but it's just always very hard to get across what you're seeing to the audience. In terms of, make a better video than the game actually is, that can very often be true, I think, in the case of very padded games. Because when games are really unintuitive, or it's hard to figure stuff out, or like the UI or the menus are a mess, then like I can spend like a few minutes going like, what the hell is going on? Why is this? I don't understand what's... Wait, hang on. Let's just Alt-tab out and go and find a bloody wiki. And I can cut all that out. And I can cut all of that out. So, like, sometimes if a game is really padded, like, there's huge travel times where there's nothing interesting in the overworld, or there's loads of boring inventory management, or it's just very slow in general. Like, at that point, probably my videos can... I wouldn't say misrepresent, because it's kind of accidental, but I might accidentally misrepresent a game, and, like, you don't go into it knowing it's as slow as it is. And I try and bring attention to that and mention... hey, I've just cut out, for you this has been a few seconds, but I've just cut out 10 minutes worth of this. I find the menu system a bit hard to work with or whatever. I try and mention it. But yeah, I think there are definitely instances in both directions there, yes. Have you read Ready Player One? No, I actually haven't. I've heard such mixed things. Like, some people seem to truly despise it and some people seem to absolutely love it. So I might get round to it at some point, but I have not myself, no. What do you think of the Nintendo Switch, a console that can play games like Skyrim on the go? Due credit to Nintendo, they've knocked it out of the park. I thought the Switch was not going to be a success. And you can probably find me saying that because I'm pretty sure I did state that in the NerdCube podcast. In fact, I believe in the NerdCube podcast, before the Switch came out, I basically said this is basically Nintendo throwing in the towel. Like, they know they make good handhelds, but they don't make great home consoles. So this is basically them converting their main home console into a handheld, and pretty much after this point they'll probably just stick to handhelds. This is them throwing in the towel. They're giving up the home console race. Yeah, I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. I mean, okay, fine, I admit, like, the reason Nintendo Switch has done so well is because it's a handheld that can play games that we wouldn't normally assume ought to be handhelds. But, you know, I was 100% wrong on that. I think they've knocked it out the park. I don't own one myself, because generally, like, when I buy gaming equipment, it's because I want to record off it, and most of my actual, like, gaming time is spent recording. So I don't do a huge amount of gaming for leisure, because, like, when you've spent your entire day playing games, then editing games, and then, like, discussing games in comments or whatever, like, sometimes I don't want to game for pleasure anymore. Like, in my leisure time, I want to read a book, or just, you know, be quiet, or whatever. So, like, I don't have a Switch myself, but due credit to Nintendo, they've done a fantastic job with that thing. What's your favourite Doctor Who episode? Who's your favourite Doctor? Matt Smith's my favourite Doctor. I think his first series in particular is very, very strong, which is series 5 in the new Who listing of things. My favourite episode is... That's difficult. That's really difficult. My favourite episode is probably, I'll give it to the two-parter, Human Nature and Family of Blood, which was in Series 3. That was David Tennant as the 10th Doctor with Martha Jones. That is just a brilliant two-parter. I love those episodes. It's so damn good. And David Tennant is amazing as Mr. Smith. It's just a great little episode, or rather pair of episodes. But, like, I consider a pair of episodes to go together in one. Hi John, I went into the comments section of one of your Frost videos and saw dozens of comments yelling about vodka. How do you venture in there without losing your sanity? In all fairness, it was my fault. I was literally discussing about how I needed, like, booze and particularly, like, spirits like vodka while I was looking at a bottle of vodka, and I didn't see the bottle of vodka I was looking at. I brought that one on myself. First month Patreon here. Welcome, Jack. I've got a simple question for you this month. I'm thinking to get into the Total War games as I loved your series. I don't know where to start. Which Total War game is the best place to start with? Ooh, it's really interesting. Because the first time the Total War franchise went all 3D was Rome Total War. So I wouldn't recommend going any further back than that. I personally think the original Rome has aged very well and is still very playable. However, I've seen many people say online, oh, you know, Rome was revolutionary in its time, but if you go back and play it now, you really can feel its age. I disagree. I think it's still very enjoyable. I think it's great. Like, there's some ones, like, I'd probably recommend don't start with. Like, for example, Empire, definitely don't start with. Empire's better than some people say, but Empire's also got a really large amount of complicated stuff layered on the top of it. Like, that would be a terrible place to start. It's not very new player friendly. I would argue, I think the original Rome would be a fine starting point. Medieval 2 would be a good follow-up, but you could start there if you wanted to. There's some interesting stuff there, but arguably I think Rome is the simpler one to start off with, albeit still with plenty of depth and fun stuff going on. Shogun 2 actually has a fairly small unit roster, so in theory Shogun 2's pretty easy to get your head around. So Shogun 2, if you wanted a more modern one that's generally regarded as having aged very well, that might be a good place. Attila I don't think is particularly new player friendly. Attila I think is quite hardcore and more for experienced players. I would argue possibly... I think actually the Warhammers aren't bad. Warhammer 1, if you're actually into Warhammer, maybe consider Warhammer 1. Warhammer 1 isn't too complicated, really. Like, Warhammer 2 led some extra stuff on the top, and Mortal Empires is... Actually, Mortal Empires probably wouldn't be terrible, because Mortal Empires takes... but then Mortal Empires has a lot of Horde showing up very early. Yeah, I'd say maybe Warhammer 1, Shogun 2, or the original Rome, depending on your tolerance for games that probably look scruffy these days. But if you can overlook that, I think the original Rome Total War's aged really well. What's your favourite coffee shop? I have a feeling you're a Cafe Nero man. I probably actually prefer... Like, I go to Pret because I like their sandwiches. I think Pret does the best sandwiches of the UK coffee shops. So I'll probably favour Pret. I used to really like Coffee Republic. When I was a student, I used to go to Coffee Republic on occasion. But then I think they've ceased to exist now. I think they were, like, eaten by something else. I can't remember who bought them now. But I'm pretty sure they went into administration and, like, all the Coffee Republics got converted into something else. But I can't remember who or when. But I'm pretty sure they're gone. But it used to be Coffee Republic, so I feel kind of sad they're gone. Have you ever sat down to record a final part of the series only to realise there's a lot more to the game you need to do, meaning you have to redo your audio or the whole video even? I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but on occasion, I do actually have to, like, redo the intro, because, like, the thing I thought we were going to do doesn't happen and something else happens, and I don't want to kind of, like, misrepresent it with the opening. What happens the most is, like, I'll actually kind of let a video go on way too long, and then I'll just kind of lose track of time, and I realise at the end of it, oh, this video's, 5 hours long, and then I need to basically say, okay, so somewhere around like the 2.5 hour mark, I need to figure out a logical place to cut it, and then I'll record a new outro saying, alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough for now, but next time we'll do this and do that. In the meantime, I'll be trying to bye. There we are, that's just me doing the cadences. And then I'll record a new intro. Too, which on occasion causes problems, because that means sometimes I record the intro after I've done the video. So sometimes intros are lies, because sometimes I'll say like, yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I'm John, this is Mini True Nerd, and today we're going to do this, but I don't know if we're going to do, and I know full well whether we're going to do that or not, because though I don't know after the intro's done, the intro itself, I do know it's done, and diddly dee. So that happens on occasion. That's the most common event where things need to be redone, where I accidentally record for way too long, which is why I tend to have a little clock next to me to try and stop that happening. John, did you ever play Spyro the Dragon? No, never my thing, I'm afraid. I never played Spyro the Dragon. I was more of a Nintendo kid when I was younger anyway. I had an N64 in that era. I did play on other people's PlayStations on occasion, so I played a few games on the PlayStation by like borrowing other people's PlayStations or playing on their PlayStations when I went around to their place. But no, I never actually played the original Spyro, so I'm afraid I cannot comment on it. Do you know the board game Tickle, or Tickle, sorry I don't know how to pronounce it, and if so, what's your opinion on it? Never actually played it, unfortunately. And have you thought of John versus Claire for your next cooking video? Then you can show how it's done. That's a bloody genius idea. Okay, Dominic B, I might just steal your idea. How would I make that work? I don't know how I'd make that work, because we've only got one kitchen. Yeah, so as lovely as it would be, that Patreon money, yeah, we'll just use our 2 kitchens and like our double set of recording equipment that we otherwise don't use. That's just gathering dust. I'm not sure how I'd make that work, but that's a really fun idea. Oh, speaking of John vs... You can't announce something they've seen 2 days ago. It's about to say, there's a new John versus Claire video coming up. Yeah, but for you, it's 2 days ago. For me, it's tonight, because that's when the Carcassonne video is coming out. For you, it's 2 days ago. So I can't like, you know, tease that, because you've already seen it. That's an interesting idea. I might have a think about whether I can make that work. I was wondering if you ever played Mad Max when it came out. No, I didn't. Despite the fact it looks really cool. I can't remember why I didn't at the time. I think possibly it came out when like I didn't have a good PC and I just never got review code for it. I can't remember. But I've got it now, so I do think it might actually be fun to do a one-off video of that at some point. That would definitely be fun, yes. What are some of your and Claire's favourite acts and actresses? Ooh, that's a difficult question. To be honest, I'm not really the sort of person who'll be like, oh, this person's in this film, so therefore I want to go and see it. Like, I make my decisions about films based on, like, plot and trailer and whatever. Like, I don't really have, like, an actor and actress I'd call, like, my favourite, because, like, to me, that's not really an important question, so I can't really think of anyone. Like, you know, like, earlier in this very, like, thing, I was asked, like, oh, who's your favourite doctor? Okay, fine, that's Matt Smith. I think Matt Smith's a fun actor. Would I say he's my favourite actor? No, not really. I honestly can't think of an example. Sorry, I'll pass over to Claire, because I think she might have more opinions on this than me.
Oh, I don't know either. I tend to look into actors that are in movies that I like because I like the movie rather than because I like the actor specifically. But basically anyone who's like in the MCU or in Star Wars or whatever, like I'll often dig up interviews and stuff on YouTube, but no one specific that I'll like watch everything that they've done, no.
A question I've always wanted to ask, if you had to be stuck in an incredibly hot lift, or an elevator for American fans, with either Dan or Matt, who would you choose? We're talking stuck for hours, 12 at least. You know, I'd go for Matt. I'd go for Matt because I know him personally a lot better. Dan's very busy, so I don't talk to him directly that frequently. But Matt, you know, me and Matt are good friends these days. Like, you know, we speak on a not a regular basis. I consider Matt a very good friend. So I would just say Matt, just because I know him very well and I really do enjoy his company. He's a very good close friend of mine. Do you think you'd ever do a Fallout 3 series looking at the lore and cool bits like you did with New Vegas in the Jay Sawyer series? Honestly, not on its own, because I don't think there's quite as many of them in Fallout 3 as there is in New Vegas. That would probably be like how I'd do a Fallout 3 remastered thing. Like, I know they're talking about remastering Fallout 3 for console, for Xbox One and PS4. The thing is, I just don't know whether that's going to be worth actually revisiting at that point, because the thing is, like, a remastered for console version of Fallout 3 might still look worse than a modded PC version of Fallout 3. So it's hard to say whether that's worthwhile. I mean, I could... Okay, I might do something like that, either for the remastered version whenever that happens, or, potentially, alternatively, for, like, the Fallout 3 made in the Fallout 4 engine, assuming they ever finished that, which they might well not do, because these projects have an odd habit of taking a decade and then never seeming to actually come out. Hi John, on a previous Patroncast, you mentioned that you may be appearing on someone else's podcast in the future. Is this something that we can still look forward to? Oh, blimey, I'm trying to remember when I mentioned that and what I was referring to. There have been a few things that have kind of come and gone that didn't really go anywhere. So I'm afraid I literally can't remember what I was referring to at the time. At this exact moment in time, I do not have any solid plans, but like occasionally like little invites do come in, but sometimes we can't make timings work. So maybe, but not imminently, and I'm not sure exactly what I myself was referring to. What's the extent of my knowledge of Norse mythology? Basically none. It's something I've not really done any reading about, so pretty much what's covered off in the Thor films takes me to more or less my limit. What would you or Claire get for each other if you could? No problem with money and resources. Ooh, I'd do that bit out of Beauty and the Beast where I'd basically buy Claire an entire library and then take her in there so I could do the "if you like it so much, it's yours" moment from Beauty and the Beast. So I'm going to say library. What would be the perfect date for you two? Could we just basically stay in and be on the sofa and watch Netflix? I'm pretty sure it's just that. Quick question as well about the Discord server. Yeah, I know I haven't been on the Discord server hugely this past month. We've been really busy because a load of stuff has like come to us really late on. Like you may have noticed like in the past like few weeks, and actually continuing for the next few weeks, like we're doing a lot of new release stuff that we haven't been able to get our hands on really early. And like when you get stuff last minute, it's very time consuming and stressful because it means you need to play it and then edit it and then make sure it's all okay, render it and upload it like ideally the same day, which is really time consuming and it's a really inefficient way to record. It's much more efficient to do things in batches and then put them into a backlog so I can record things all together, multiple parts in one day, and then those move over to Claire for editing if that's feasible. Because we're doing so much new stuff at the minute, because for some reason like loads of new games coming out, it's just eating a lot of time at the minute, so I'm really lucky in free time at the moment. So like the time I do have to like just kind of when I'm not actually working to hang out with the channel, I try and use that in the comments so I can be there answering comments for everybody, but I will try and be on the Discord a bit more. Also, why on Reddit do you have the series by week ordered by the series? That's so frustrating to look at. I'll try and remember to go and fix that so it looks better for you, Fred. Any idea when we're going to see more VR videos? Fun thing about VR videos is because they're such a faff to actually set up, because you need to like set up all the equipment and you've no idea like when you start playing how it's going to actually look, because sometimes they've got screen mirroring and a proper spectator mode that works beautifully and it's all fine, and sometimes they don't. You need to like put it on the biggest screen you've got and then screen capture what one of your eyes is seeing and then like just cut a 16:9 rectangle out of that vision and diddly-diddly-dee. It's a real faff. So generally what I do is I wait for a few VR games that I'm really excited by to all show up, and then I do them in a big batch in a single day. So actually, conveniently, just the other day, one that I was kind of interested in did arrive. So I think I've got like 2 VR games I want to make videos out of at the minute. So next time I've actually got a free day, I might do a VR day where I make 2 VR videos and put them in the backlog to be released as convenient. I'm wondering, did you ever play Kingdom Hearts much when you were younger? No, the whole thing's a mystery to me. Like, occasionally I see screenshots of it and it's like, what the bloody hell is going on in this game? This game looks really bloody weird. So, potentially, at some point, like, I'm sure there must have been, like, versions of them that still look okay. I might go and do just, like, a little visit into one of them. Actually, recommend me in the comments, like, what's a good starting point for a game that's still available on, like, you know, ideally available on PC these days, or in a version that would be easily accessible and still looks good? to this day, because I don't really know where to start with that at this point. It looks very confusing to someone from the outside. It's a very odd blend of characters. I have no idea what's going on. John, any chance of you appearing on the Co-Optional podcast? Oh, that's what I was referring to earlier. Yes, that was what I was referring to earlier. I've just remembered when I said it. Oh, I might be appearing in a different podcast. Yeah, at one point I did briefly speak to the Co-Optional podcast about maybe being on it, but we were never able to actually find a date that worked. So as a result, yeah, I was potentially going to be on that, but that kind of didn't go anywhere in the end. So, I don't know, I've been approached once about it, so maybe I'll be on it in future, I don't know. Didn't you do a video about In Other Waters? Does not ring a bell, I'm pretty sure I've never done that video. I think you're thinking of someone else there, Eli. How do you rate Empire and Napoleon compared to the rest of the series? I don't think Empire is the best, but I don't think it's the worst either. A lot of people seem to really hate Empire. I personally do not enjoy Napoleon. I just don't enjoy the way the campaign's structured with, like, the different, like, stages and eras and, like, moving from map to map and stuff. I just don't like the way Napoleon fits together and the structure of the campaign. I personally think Empire's not great. It's got some big flaws, but I think it's got some really fun, interesting ideas, particularly when it comes to trade and colonies. In fact, actually, I really would love them to make Empire 2. I would love Empire 2 so much. I think kind of a optimized, improved version of Empire would be amazing. Have you ever considered playing The Last of Us on your channel? The Last of Us is an interesting one. You see, the thing about The Last of Us is, it's a big narrative game, and narrative games generally are really plot heavy and cutscene heavy in the early sections. So as a result of that, like, if I was to make a one-off video that was even an hour long with some stuff cut out, like, loads of that might just be, yep, this is a cutscene, we're just going to quietly watch a cutscene at this point, then a little bit of action, more cutscenes, more story, more setup, intro sequence, etc, etc. Then finally you get to the tutorials, and, like, I feel like I could make, like, a really long video and barely be out of the tutorial section. That's what I kind of look at Last of Us and fear. So, like, it strikes me as one of those games we should only do if it was like a midweek mini-series. So maybe it'll take that form at some point, but I don't know when. I've got ones I want to do before that. Would you consider doing another FTL video or live stream sometime soon? Oh, I'm always in the mood to do FTL live streams. At some point, I might well actually do an FTL live stream. Like, they're always really successful. Like, loads of people turn out for them. Like, I did one on my birthday last year, so I might well do that again. I might well make that an event, but I don't know, maybe I shouldn't make you wait that long. Maybe we'll do one sooner rather than later, but, like, I'll wait for Civ 6 to be done first, because I kind of like the Civ 6 streams. They're doing very nicely. I bought Stellaris because of you, and I love it. The only problem is I'm really bad at it. Whenever all the other AI is starting to go to war, I'm always way behind on ship technology. Can you give any tips to a guy who's played it a good bunch, but is still terrible? If technology is your problem, then probably you'll just want to go really heavy on the materialist front, because then you get just bonus research by default. You can also obviously set yourself up to have more in the way of research through how you set up your primary species. So, for example, you could give yourself the intelligent trait, which I believe is plus, I think that's plus 10% research speed across the board. And you can also take, say, on top of that, you could take, like, natural physicists, natural sociologists, or natural engineers for a further plus 15% in that particular area. I personally, if you feel like you're falling behind in war, would recommend either natural physicists if you want to go for, like, lasery weapons, or natural engineers if you want to go for more in the way of kinetic weaponry. In fact, probably want natural engineers, because engineering also covers, like, engine parts and stuff like that, and upgraded star bases, star holds, etc. So natural engineer plus intelligent on a materialist empire would give you a really big boost in research speed for war-related stuff. So that's probably not the worst idea in the world. What are your favourite games in general? Obviously you know about New Vegas and Rome Total War. I absolutely love Skies of Arcadia, and one day I'd love to make a series of it, but the problem is it doesn't really have any voice acting, and it's got a huge cast of really cool characters, so I'd need to voice act all of them. So it's a really difficult series. In fact, I've literally, I think it was about 2 years ago, I tried to record the first part of that, and just, like, I thought, no, this isn't good enough. This isn't, like, good enough to be worthy of Skies of Arcadia. I just deleted it. So I would love to do Skies of Arcadia as a series at one point, but it's really, really difficult to do. So bloody difficult to do, just because of the voice acting business. Hitman Hitman Blood Money is an absolutely spectacular game, and Advance Wars 2 on the GBA is one of my favourites kind of tactical puzzly games of all time. That's spectacular as well. What was your reaction from friends and family when you told them you were leaving your previous job to focus on YouTube? They encouraged me to do it, because I was basically trying to do a full-time job that had quite long hours at the same time as trying to run the YouTube channel, and like I was getting burnt out doing it. I was like, people were seeing it. Like, when I saw my family, they saw bags under my eyes and just said, you look so exhausted, you can't keep doing this, you have to choose. And I chose this. I don't regret it in the slightest, it's been great. But yeah, there was no kind of like, oh my goodness, he's turned over to this and he's doing this now. They were just relieved I wasn't like working myself to death anymore. So that was a good way to get around that. John, have you or Claire ever been to Quebec? I don't believe I have. I've been to Canada many times because I have a lot of family around the Ontario area. Yeah, I've got lots of Canadian family, in fact, and a few more dotted close by to Vancouver. I don't think I know anyone in Quebec, so I don't believe I've ever actually been there, though I have been to Canada many times. Claire! Question for Claire here. What does Claire think of the Quebec accent or dialect? I've heard a lot of French people have trouble understanding us because they think that we speak too quickly.
No, I haven't been to Quebec nor to Canada, actually, but I would really, really love to go. That's one of the top places on my list, actually, to travel to. As for the Quebecois accent or dialect, I actually don't know much about it. I mean, I know incidental stuff like food or swear words, but I don't think I've ever kind of heard a lot of it spoken.
Have you ever considered doing a multiplayer series for Stellaris? Maybe you and Claire, Matt, etc. Multiplayer Stellaris is difficult because it's a very big game that takes a very, very, very long time. So I'm not sure exactly how I'd do that other than, like, say, if we, like, insisted that the game speed would always be on faster or fastest. But then, even then, like, I'd have problems playing at that speed. So someone like Claire, who was less familiar with the game, would struggle a lot more. I don't think Matt plays Stellaris, or if he does, he doesn't play it much. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure how I'd really make that work. So I think there's probably better things I could do. That could be a community thing, actually. I could do a great big Stellaris community day. That'd be kind of cool. I might keep that as an idea, actually. As he's a time traveller, isn't it more accurate to call him Dr. Wen? No, it's not. Go away. How soon will you play Rome Total War Barbarian Invasion? I would like to turn to it at some point because I think it's a really, really interesting DLC that introduced a whole bunch of ideas that would go on to be refined in Medieval 2. And in fact, some of it's just really hilariously broken because they were just throwing new ideas at the wall, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. So it's a fascinating DLC. So absolutely at some point, but I don't know exactly when. What are some of the most fun or interesting kind of races to play in Stellaris? I personally am having a really good time with my current species, the Tabbies, where basically it's just a real focus on unity, where you go spiritualist and traditional and just go really for unity. Like, if you wanted to absolutely go ludicrous unity, you could also throw in some pacifism and then take the, what's it called, the one where farms also produce unity. And just basically go, I want nothing but unity all of the time. So that would be kind of interesting. Is it Agrarian Idyll? I can't remember what it's called now. But yeah, if you went for... Or was it Inward Perfection? Hang on, or is that the one for the... I can't remember which one's which. I think if you went for some kind of combination of, like, Inward Perfection and the one where the farms give unity and also a bit of spiritualist and also traditional, you could just be raking in the unity. And then if you kind of played with quite a small empire, you could basically try and... You wouldn't exactly be able to play tall, but you could kind of play a bit tall and go for a smaller empire and just basically say, I want to research fast, I want to get traditions fast, and I want to rush to things like habitats with the Voidborn Ascendancy perk and try and rush to a Colossus and start literally just blowing up all the planets around you. That might be kind of fun. Hey John, Siege, I assume that's Rainbow Six Siege, has a new PvE mode called Outbreak coming soon. Any plans to cover or make a video of it? Ooh, interesting. I did kind of enjoy Rainbow Six Siege. I might give it a look. I don't know because I don't know anything about it yet. But maybe. Just maybe. Also, have you heard of or do you have any plans for West of Loathing? It has been recommended before. It's not high up on the list right now, but it is on my radar. So maybe, but I don't know exactly when. Hi John, you're stuck on a desert island. For some reason you have a laptop and reliable electricity supply, don't ask. Maybe even some tea if you're nice. However, you can only have one game with you. Would you choose Stellaris or Rome 1? Ooh, interesting. I'd probably take Stellaris, even though I prefer Rome 1, just because Rome 1's not going to get patched again in the future. So as a result, Rome 1, basically, I've already put thousands of hours into it, so I would know what was going on. Whereas Stellaris is a game that's still evolving and I'm still learning about. So I'd have to stay Stellaris. Plus, Stellaris I can actually make more challenging for myself, because Rome 1 I can very comfortably beat on very hard, whereas Stellaris, because of all the new sliders in 2.0, I could just like whack up the crisis strength to like 5 times strength. So I could basically give myself really impossible challenges no matter how good I got. So that strikes me as a good idea. If transhumanism becomes a reality, will you be excited or just flipping terrified? Well, it's like any form of big science thing that starts affecting the human condition. It could be used for great good or great evil. So I guess it kind of depends on who develops it and what they start using it for. I can't really give you a better answer because it's just like, you know, transhumanism and posthumanism is such a wide topic that, like, it just depends what it is and what it's for. So, yeah, I struggle to answer that one, I'm afraid. But I'd say, you know, be excited and terrified in equal measure. As you enjoyed the animation in Forgotten Anne, are there any other games that you've played that you could almost recommend on visuals alone? Ooh, interesting question. I personally think that's probably one of the reasons why I hold Wind Waker in such high regard, because Wind Waker involves a lot of sailing across a fairly flat and interesting sea without much going on, but just the music and the graphics and how gorgeous and colourful everything is makes it all work for me regardless. So maybe Wind Waker is an example of that sort of a game. I've always noticed that when you loot containers, you almost always scroll to the bottom and then loot up, even if there are only 2 items and you took them both. Is there any reason you do this other than to bother me? Ooh, I don't know. I never realised I'd do that. I mean, logically it makes sense to go down to the bottom because I want to see all the things that are in a container before I react to how good the container is. But even if I can already see all of it, I don't know. Possibly I've just developed muscle memory to always skim down to the bottom to check what's in there, even if I can already see what's in there. So I'm afraid I don't know. I'm not really thinking about doing it. Sorry. John, what's the worst injury you had? Did you have to go to hospital for it? The worst injury I picked up in terms of, like, you know, some form of accident or whatever actually causing me harm was not really that bad. I've been ill in the past to various degrees of severity that have taken me to hospital, but in terms of actual injuries, I've been quite lucky. Once, in fact, actually, I think literally the worst it's ever been was once I had a slightly awkward fall and ended up with some slightly sprained and fractured stuff around my wrist and hand, but that was just a case of a quick x-ray, strapping it up, and then just being careful for a little while. So, honestly, in terms of actual injuries, yeah, I've been pretty lucky. I've only had some minor sprains and fractures. Are you familiar with IFTTT, a web-based app that allows trigger events to make changes with other web services? I ask because apparently YouTube is working to integrate it with YouTube Live Super Chat. This could allow you to set off a smart light, or you could log the donations to a Google Drive sheet. Interesting. I don't think we need that because, like, back end, there's a couple of already quite useful tools that Claire can use to keep an eye on Super Chat donations rather than just the ones that are seen from the front. So I don't think we'd need that, but thanks for the heads up. Do you prefer the newest update to Stellaris, i.e. 2.0? Do you think it was better before the update? Oh, I think it's so much better. I think War is so much more interesting now. I think the borders work so much better now. Absolutely, it needs a whole bunch of patching and work to kind of get it absolutely spot on, but it is completely 100% better. I love it. Even though you describe yourself as a true nerd, I don't. I'm not many a true nerd. You're many a true nerd. I say at the beginning of every video, I'm John, this is many a true nerd. I never describe myself as a true nerd. You guys are the true nerd, because you're the one watching me. What is one decidedly non-nerdy thing that you do or describes you? Ooh. I suppose I do like watching trashy reality shows, which isn't really nerdy at all. So, like, you know, things like Hunted on TV, or when I heard there was, like, a US version of Hunted, I was all over that. And, like, Bear Grylls The Island. I love watching stuff like that. So that's not particularly nerdy. It's kind of trashy reality TV. So I do quite like trashy reality TV. So that's probably my non-nerdy thing, I guess. Also, I used to be really into Formula 1, which is, I guess, as sports go, like, watching sports isn't nerdy, but of all the sports you can watch, Formula 1's probably the nerdiest. So I'm guessing that doesn't count. Be thrilled if you checked out Path of Exile. Completely free, ton of good ARPG content. Not my favourite game, would love to hear your opinion on it. I will give it a look-see. I don't know anything about it right now, so I can't comment, but I will give it a look-see. John, I've got a good idea for a Halloween episode you could do. There's a lovely mod for Fallout 4 called Maxwell's World. Oh, that's going to be creepy, isn't it? You should travel there with one of your survival characters. Oh, I shouldn't. I don't like the sound of this already. Okay, I might give it a look if I decide to do a Halloween episode. It was odd. I didn't know that question was coming. I missed that one. Given I was just saying earlier, yeah, Halloween episodes don't really work for us. I might consider it if it's Fallout-y. We'll give it a look-see, perhaps. Given you seem to enjoy Forgotten Anne, would you consider playing Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch? It's a great game, also animated by Studio Ghibli. Oh, it's actually animated by Studio Ghibli, or just in the style of Studio Ghibli. I might have to give it a look. I do not know much about it. A few questions on Frost. First, returning to a known safe area, or as safe as it can be in Frost, doesn't seem to be high in your list of survival tactics. I posit you choose to do this for tension heightening reasons and to keep the narrative moving forward. It's also just because there's not as much incentive to go back to your established bases as there is in base survival. Because in base survival, you're always going to want to go back to your established bases because there's plenty of crops around, so there's a good chance you'll actually have some food there. There's plenty of water around because you can always put up a fresh water thing. Now, admittedly, now I've discovered you can use the sinks to provide fresh water at a base. You might want to nip back to your own base. In theory, interesting. Yeah, I think it's mainly just because up to this point, bases aren't as valuable as they were when there's not defenses, when there's not so much food, and when water can basically be got with, 3 steel at any base you can actually take. So it's just not as much of an incentive to go back there. And when there's, not a good supply of food at any of your bases, your food meter's constantly ticking down, you don't know where you're going to get more food. So, rather than, zigzagging back to an old base and then going back to where I was, I'd rather push on, because otherwise I'm just going to end up starving to death. So it's kind of, there is some actual tactics there beyond just trying to heighten tension. And if you could choose any of the perks from any Fallout game in real life, what would it be? Ooh, that's a very interesting question. I'm immediately tempted by Aqua Boy from Fallout 4 because basically that's just a perk that lets you swim underwater without breathing forever, which basically just means you get to turn into Aquaman for free. Although actually, I should probably take the sensible option and just say Skilled. Because Skilled is basically just a perk that means I gain experience slower, but that's fine because I'm not sure how fast I'm getting experience in real life anyway. But basically, I just get noticeably better at literally everything for free. So yeah, that's probably the best idea. Let's just take Skilled. If you were to do Claire actually playing during a live stream and you handling the chat, what kind of game would Claire like to do? I think as we've discussed, it would probably end up being The Sims, because Claire really likes playing The Sims, and she's played a lot of Sims in her time. So I imagine probably it would be The Sims if so. Would you consider playing Astroneer again? There's recently been a few game-changing updates. I really did enjoy Astroneer. I put it, in fact, on my top 10 games of the year one year, wherever it came out. I can't remember, was that 17 or 16? I forget. I put it on there. Anyway, I would love to go back, but the thing is, what I've always thought about Astroneer is, I've pretty much made the perfect Astroneer video for me, which is the Nerdcube live video where me, Matt, and Dan played Astroneer together. We're never going to make anything better than that. Nothing I make will be superior to that. That was just perfect, which is kind of what's kind of put me off going back, because I feel like, you know what, I've drawn a line under that one. But I might well go back at some point, yes. You said you were considering banning guaranteed legendary weapons like Righteous Authority and the like in Fallout 4 you only live once. Would you consider a mod like unique items that gives them genuinely unique effects rather than just being two-shot or the like? I feel like that's not cruel enough because I'd like to be able to basically not just do quests knowing that, say, certain quests I'm going to have a companion with me. The companion can do the work for me, and at the end of it I'm going to get some form of powerful weapon, even if it's slightly more unique. I prefer legendaries to be gated behind having to take out a legendary enemy. I think I like that as an idea. I think that kind of works for me. So I think I prefer my original idea to that one, but it is a good suggestion. What are some games you'd love to recommend to your followers but don't want to make videos of because they wouldn't translate well to the medium? Interesting question. I did bring up earlier VR as a really good example of this. There's a lot of VR games that are just... they're incredible to play, even if they're kind of broken. They're still incredible experiences, but it's very hard to get that across. I'm trying to think of non-VR examples, and I'm really struggling. I really am. I've just had a brief pause to think about that, and I'm really struggling to actually come up with a game that I don't think I could make at least some form of video that could try and get across how good it was. I guess there might be certain games that have graphical limitations these days. Like, it would be very hard these days to try and sell you on some of the old, like, PS1 or N64 games, for example, just because if they haven't actually been ported or emulated in some capacity, then those guys are running at 240p native. So as a result, they look very, very fuzzy. And there's a lot of games that, yeah, probably you'd look at and just think, oh wow, those look so bad if you're not old enough to have actually been playing them the first time round. So that might be an issue. Then again, possibly those games have actually aged badly, and it's just my nostalgia speaking. So I kind of struggle with that one a bit. Like, VR's the obvious answer, but I can't think of many other examples, really. Have you played any of the Rusty Lake games? If so, what are your thoughts? I'm afraid I have no idea what the Rusty Lake games are. I don't recall ever coming across that before, so I will look that up after this and have a think as to whether they might make fun videos. Do you know anything about the game Forgotten Anne? You're allowed to tell us, but haven't already. No. I know a bit more I'm not allowed to say. I think everything I know about it that I can say, I did put in the video already. It looks so cool, though. So yeah, I'll definitely do a little mini-series of that when that comes out. Could you make a schedule for the main series that we consult? I can't remember from time to time when the next episode of something is. It could be on Reddit, Twitter, or in the video description. There is such a thing. In the Many a True Nerd subreddit, in the sidebar on the right, there is a schedule. I sometimes forget to update it when series change, but then someone reminds me and it gets done, so it's fine. John, would you consider playing the Yakuza series on your channel, or just more Japanese games in general? Yakuza's really interesting. Because Yakuza is a game I look at now, and there's been loads of them, where I just kind of look at them and think, I'm so confused as to what the hell's going on. Like, it's clearly a really good series, but, like, I look at it and I think, is this a really good series where, like, the love is from its fandom, where they know the characters, because as I understand it, like, it's a recurring main character, and they, you know, they understand what the tone's going to be, and, like, what the genre's going to be, and they can get into it because they understand that background knowledge. Like, I look at it and to me, my instinct says that's a bit impenetrable to a new player. I wouldn't know where to begin. So if you want to give me a recommendation for which is a good game in the Yakuza series for a new player who has no idea what they're getting into, that would actually potentially be useful, and I might well do a one-off for that. Would you consider updating your Pokemon cull list with new Pokemon that have been added? Oh dear. Right. Wait, have any more been added? I could have sworn there hasn't been a new generation since I did the cull list. Honestly, I feel like I probably shouldn't. Because as we went further and further through, I started making worse and worse choices. Like, I got rid of that little bird that was the fire flying type. I was like, oh, it's a fire flying type. That'll be terrible. We don't do that. Everyone's like, no! You must not get rid of... What was it called? Fletchlinder? Apparently it's really good and widely competitively used because it's so damn good. And I just got rid of it. It's like, oh, well, it's fire flying, so it must be garbage. Just because, yeah, having a quad weakness to stealth rock struck me as a terrible idea. But apparently it's really good and everyone uses it. And, like, you know, in the most recent World Championship, like, everyone ran with one on their team. So I probably shouldn't, because I don't know enough about the later Pokemon and I make bad decisions. John, are you going to have to play Into the Breach as long as you played FTL before you get experienced enough to finish it on hard or the harder level of difficulty? I don't know. I don't know. So I don't know whether I've played enough yet to know whether hard mode in FTL and hard mode in Into the Breach are equivalent. Like, whether hard in Into the Breach is literally so hard, even after you put hundreds of hours in, if you just happen to get some unlucky rolls and makes like a couple of bad decisions, you could be totally screwed over. So I'm afraid that I do not know yet. Dog meat or vigilance? You know what, it has to be vigilance. Like, I've never felt desperately attached to dog meat in the Fallout games, but vigilance just because I basically made up the story of him and he was just a random dog and I assigned him characteristics, I actually feel more attached to, because I like telling stories in my games, so I get attached to my own characters. John, do you know any space RTSs where space isn't a flat dimension? It bothers me that Stellaris feels and plays like it's on a flat plane, while there's so much more potential in a three-dimensional universe. That I do not know. All the various space RTSs and similar that I've actually played generally do treat space as a bit of a flat two-dimensional thing, so I'm afraid I cannot help you there. What would you like to see in the next Elder Scrolls game? The next proper Elder Scrolls game. Well, one, I want it to be a proper Elder Scrolls game and not another bloody online thing like Elder Scrolls Online. Let's just give us a proper big single-player thing. That'd be lovely, thank you. Other than that, probably just some slightly more complex quests. Like, I do really like Skyrim. I think Skyrim has aged really well. But too many quests boil down to, I need a thing, it's going to be at the back of a cave or a dungeon, go to the back of the cave or the dungeon, acquire the thing, return it to me. Like, we could do with more interesting quests with a couple of alternative solutions. Like, for example, literally last night in the Skyrim series, I did the Markarth quest where you end up in Sidna Mine. And Sidna Mine, while it's not big and it's not complicated, it's nice that there are multiple different solutions. You can use your persuade checks, you can go and acquire an item in order to kind of talk your way past someone. You can just basically, if you're a magic user and thus it doesn't matter that you don't have weapons, you can just basically summon monstrosities from hell and just murder everyone and just fight your way out through brute force. I like the fact there's multiple different solutions to that. I think the next Skyrim could do with more quests like that. And also, I'd like a toning down and reworking of the quest marker. Like, I don't like the quest marker literally says go to this exact spot, and then once you're in this exact spot, I'll tell you exactly where in the dungeon the thing you're looking for is. Like, I think this is actually one of the things Kingdom Come Deliverance does really well, where the quest markers tell you roughly the right area to go to, but they don't tell you exactly where the exact item you want is. They just say, okay, it's roughly this sort of direction, start over here, then figure it out for yourself. That's a nice system. Also, do you ever watch other YouTubers to do research on games that you play? Not much, to be honest. I more frequently rely on game wikis if I need to find out something. What is the thing that most infuriates you in the whole world? Watching other people use self-service kiosks. I hate it. I hate watching people inefficiently use self-service kiosks. Like when they've decided to scan something and they put it in the bagging area, but not in a bag. Like they don't realise that they can just grab a bag, pull it half open while leaving it on the rack of bags, and then they can put the thing directly into the bag. But no, they put it actually at the bottom of the bagging area, and then once they're done, they have to pick up the thing again and then put it into the bag. Just put it in the bag in the first place. What are you doing? Stop it. Really bugs me. Have you watched Westworld? If yes, what did you think about it? I'm afraid I have not. Never seen a single episode. If not, what the hell's wrong with you? It's about synths who know their synths. I'm not sure I actually have the ability to watch it. Isn't that on... I think that's only on Sky in the UK, and we don't have Sky. So I actually don't think I'm capable of watching it, I'm afraid. John, are we the baddies? Probably we are, yes. I wanted to recommend checking out Subnautica. Yes, I've heard good things. The console version looks like arse, but I do want to look at the PC version, because I have heard many, many good things. So at some point, I will give it a look-see. I was rewatching your old series, and I was wondering why you generally don't take skills. Now, the thing about skilled is I find it a bit pointless, because if you're doing a high intelligence build in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and why wouldn't you, because it's just free skill points, then it's really perfectly easy to pretty much max out every skill at 100, as long as you've got really high intelligence. So if you're already perfectly capable of capping out skills really fast, and capping out like every skill at 100, then why do you need 5 free skill points? But the real reason is I really hate actually just like tiny amounts being taken off or added on to the amount of XP that you get awarded, because I like seeing like, you know, XP plus 1,000, and I don't like seeing like XP plus 932 if, like, you know, you do things like you take, because I think actually it doesn't calculate correctly. Like, I think if you take skilled and then 1 rank of quick learner, it doesn't take 10% off and then add it back on again. I think it like takes 10% off but then adds 10% on the 10% off, which mathematically doesn't work out correctly, because then you actually end up at 99% skill. I think that's true. That's true in one of the games, but I can't remember. Maybe it's both of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, I swear that was at one point true in Fallout, where if you take skilled and then you take quick learner, you end up at 99%, and then like a quest that should give you 100 XP gives you 99, and it bugs the hell out of me, and I can't stand it. So that's why I don't. Plus, I'd rather take unique stuff, because skilled is just skill points, but you get skill points from, like, everywhere, whereas some of the other, like, free traits that you can take in New Vegas are, like, really, really cool, because they're unique and you've no other way of getting that sort of thing. So I'd rather take the unique stuff, just because there's no other way to get it, versus skill points, which you can get from anywhere. What game has been on the list the longest? Probably Knights of the Old Republic. It's been requested right from the very beginning. And I still don't know exactly what I want to do with it, so that's almost certainly been on the list for the longest. What game is a guilty pleasure which you wouldn't normally admit to liking? I did feel a bit guilty about actually liking Total War Arena, which I actually had quite a fun time playing, even though I didn't like the free-to-play stuff, because I feel like it's kind of my responsibility to not like it, because of all the free-to-play stuff surrounding it, but I actually did generally have a nice time playing it. And other than that, I suppose, like I was mentioning earlier, I don't really, acknowledge or record videos of me playing Fortnite or Overwatch anymore, but I do play them because I just kind of enjoy playing them. But just because, the videos didn't do desperately well, I just don't really talk about it anymore. If I understand correctly, you grew up on console games. That is correct. Did you also play PC games at the time? Yes, but I had a very kind of crappy not gaming PC. So the games I played were Worms Armageddon and Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, which are amazing games, but not quite the cutting edge games that were coming out on PC at the time. And if so, did you ever get to play what I consider the classics? Command & Conquer? No, I did not. Half-Life? Nope. Original XCOM? Nope. Commandos 1-3? Nope. Hidden and Dangerous? Nope. Operation Flashpoint? Nope. Sorry, your entire list is actually a no. Yeah, my computer probably wasn't up for most of them. My computer just about managed Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and Worms Armageddon. And quite frankly, I put hundreds or probably thousands of hours into them just because they're so damn good. Also, you asked about adopting a cat and thus asked for ideas about how to properly take care of a cat. I don't know, to be honest, because Tabby is Claire's. When we get a dog, the dog will be entirely my responsibility, but Tabby belongs to Claire and is entirely Claire's responsibility. Though obviously, if Claire's out, I will obviously feed Tabby and I love her and I will play with her and I will go and give her a hug all the time. But she's Claire's responsibility. So fortunately, someone did actually give you a really good detailed answer who clearly knows more about cats than I do, so that's marvellous. Have you played any of the classics LucasArts adventure games? Not really. I never really played much in the way of adventure games either. I suppose this kind of feeds in from the last question, actually. Yeah, I never really played the old kind of point-and-clicky adventure gamey sort of things. So I don't really have the nostalgia for them, which is why I haven't really ever covered them on the channel, to be honest. So I might well give one of them a look at some point. But the thing is, I don't want to go into something that some people consider an absolute classic and be like, I don't understand this, I'm not appreciating it. So, yeah, it's kind of a maybe there. How is Natasha McNibble's face, your pet Venus flytrap, doing? We had some problems with that. This, by the way, was a gift sent to me by Matt after he heard that I was really uncomfortable and scared of Venus flytraps. I think they're kind of freaky. So Matt decided to literally mail order a Venus flytrap for me. So thanks, Matt. We did indeed attempt to take care of Natasha McNibble's face. Unfortunately, I can't remember what it was now. Claire either under or overfed it or under or overwatered it. But sadly, Natasha McNibble's face has passed away. So she is no longer with us. Which faction in the Fallout franchise do you think best aligns with your ideals? Probably I'd have to say the Followers. Just because they actually seem like, just decent people who don't have any plans for world domination or anything. They're just basically, you know what? Maybe we should put our faith in science and medicine and try and do our best to help people because that's a decent thing to do. They just seem like, decent all-round sorts, to be honest. You've previously said you truly are as inept in the kitchen as your cooking videos suggest. How did you survive before, Claire? The answer is microwave meals. An awful lot of microwave meals. Is there any food you can actually cook? I did used to on occasion make a decent risotto and a terrible spaghetti carbonara. But my old flatmate who I used to live with, she would always eat it regardless. So, bless her for being willing to tolerate me. Also, what's your favourite food? Probably cherry Bakewell tart. I do like a cherry Bakewell tart. Firstly, what did Claire think of John's wedding cake? You know what? I'm going to pass over to Claire. Claire, what did you think of the amazing Many a True Nerd wedding cake?
Well, the cake itself was fine. I thought it was maybe a little bit dry, but we ate all of it, or at least as much of it as had not been destroyed by DVDs. The video, though, and the video making process for John's cooking videos is just really, really frustrating to me because I just want to get in there and fix everything, and that's not the point of those videos. I do love the fact that this particular video brought us the moment where John discovered that the butter is packaged with increments of 25 grams written on it so that you can measure it easily. Because he was so genuinely amazed by it. It was a good moment.
Secondly, would you like to do more co-op stuff with Matt? Euro Truck 2 and Portal 2 live streams were some of my favourite streams. They were really good. I should do some more stuff with Matt at some point. That is definitely true. John, boring question. There are no boring questions, only boring answers, and I'm sure I can give you one to this. How do you file your taxes, and what do you get to write off as business expense? I basically just hand everything over to an accountant. Because my experience is, because obviously this all has to be run as a business for tax reasons, like, generally I find that whenever I just give things over to an accountant, it works out overall, because sure I have to pay the accountant to do the work, but like the amount that I save because the accountant knows how to do it properly and what I am and aren't allowed to claim back and allowances that do and don't exist that I wouldn't be aware of, like I find that basically just handing everything over to an accountant and saying, you do it for me, works out for us. In terms of what I get to write off as business expense, pretty much anything that's hardware or software that gets bought for the business will be bought by the business account. So, for example, like I'm sitting in front of obviously like, a monitor and a computer right now. So technically the business purchased those, and we've recently got ourselves registered for VAT, so anything we buy from now on, I think you can also do this retrospectively as well, so I can either from now on, I may be able to, for old purchases, reclaim VAT on things that I buy for the business against tax, but pretty much it's just, does the business need something in terms of, do I need something to do my job, whether that be like, a laptop, a monitor, a computer, etc., like a new peripheral. Like at that point, like I buy it out of the business account. Basically, the business purchases it and holds it. So yeah, there's your boring answer. But it's nothing too desperately complicated, to be honest. Like in terms of how complicated a business can be, because we don't really buy or sell stock, relatively our business is probably pretty simple. So I imagine our accountant has a pretty easy job with it. What do you mean when you say videos aren't showing up in subfeeds? Right now on YouTube, videos are very often showing up with latency. So if I push a video live, the people who get notifications by email get those notifications immediately. And obviously I'll like tweet and put an announce up on the Reddit and whatever, and those people can click for immediately. But it won't actually appear in your subscription feed for about 10 minutes or thereabouts, and that seems to have been happening pretty consistently for a few weeks. But I can't verify for certain that's happening everywhere. That's how I'm seeing it with my test accounts and stuff, but potentially it might not be affecting every territory, so maybe if you're in a different country, you're not seeing that. But that's definitely happening at least some of the time, because I've seen other people complaining about it. And in fact, that was actually the last question, because the last question is actually someone from earlier saying, I need a schedule, who's actually found the schedule I just mentioned in Reddit. So yay! So that's the end, and that means now I need to go out into the cold. I may be some time, to reuse a joke I'm sure that has been used many, many times across British officers during the snow. So there we are. That's the February Patroncast. I think I hopefully got to everything there. I will now go and edit the post to say this has been recorded, so sadly I cannot acknowledge anything else. Hopefully I will see you all next month indeed. But in the meantime, I've been John. This has been Many a True Nerd, and this has been the February 2018 Patroncast. Thank you all so very, very much for keeping this whole thing going, and goodbye.